And of course in contrast to this Polish game, for example, which many have praised. What is the Polish game? The Polish game is not retro. The Polish game is, but it's for PlayStation 1. Or, but it's for PlayStation 2. It's a modern big game, so to speak, but it's for PlayStation 1. It's not a retro game. The Polish game is not Gothic. There are no Gothic themes told there somehow. So I watched the game completely on Twitch with someone. So I saw 100% of the story, everything. And it's not Gothic. It's an embarrassing, Eurojank fanfiction. But it's not Gothic. You have to clarify that again very briefly. I don't think I know either, the Gothic2, Piranha Bytes community, so you really can't say anything other than cattle. And completely stupid morons. What is Gothic2? Gothic2 is two things. It's retro. And it's Gothic. Or it's three things. It's Gothic. It's retro. And it's Eurojank. And all these people from this community are apparently just Eurojank community. Just Eurojank fans. Because if these people were retro fans, then they would see that in computer games, gameplay and combat systems are not protected by copyright. For example, take a look at the Playable Teaser 2019. The Playable Teaser 2019 has stolen the combat system 1-to-1 from For Honor Game 2016. They simply took For Honor Game 2016. The combat system 1-to-1, copy and paste, into Playable Teaser 2019. And they can just do that. They can just do that. And there is no copyright. And nothing. And it's the same with Gothic2. Anyone can copy the combat system and the gameplay, here with blocking, backstep dodge, here with punches, so with rhythmic slamming, can copy that 1-to-1 into another engine. And then maybe charge $80 for it. The only thing that is protected by copyright in computer games is like in movies. So if you think of Gothic2 as a movie, everything that is movie about Gothic2. So the story, the setting, the NPCs, what the NPCs are called, the characters. All this is copyright protected. A screenwriter of a movie came up with it. And that is copyright protected. What is not copyright protected is the setting theme. So Gothic low fantasy main story of the Gothic in Germany. That is not copyright protected. Copyright protected is also not the combat system, is not the gameplay. And also copyright protected are not the sounds. To a large extent the sounds are also not copyright protected. For example the orc monsters. When the orc monsters scream around so loudly, and so on. You can put that in another computer game straight away. And then of course what is perhaps still protected by copyright is the music. But I also have to say. For example, Legend of Ascen Game 2018 has its own music. But with Gothic2, or with Gothic in general, except for Gothic 3, I always turn the music off. The music bothers me so much. And I don't understand how people don't see that. That is, these people who are somehow part of the Gothic2 community are actually just the Eurojank community. Because everything that's Eurojank about Gothic, that's what they praise. They don't see that the retro is not copyrighted. They don't see that. And they haven't seen the story and stuff anyway. I explained that at the beginning. So I'm like, how can anyone praise that? So I don't know, so you really have to say, there seems to be genetic incompatibility. And I'm so sick of this stagnation. And others say, hey, this is masterpiece, this is what I love. So you have to say, incompatible. So I'm definitely not part of this Eurojank community. Who would praise this technical snot here in any way? So I want to finally see this remastered in a decent, proper engine. That's what I want. And also these people who always praise this engine and stuff. So I have to be honest, if anyone from this nasty, Piranha Bytes, Eurojank community thinks that yes, I'm rude to them, or I don't know how to be friendly. I hope I'm rude enough. I hope I only come across as unsympathetic and rude to these people. Because I want to finally have remasters. And I just don't want these people anymore who are always saying that they think this Eurojank is so great. No, I hate the Eurojank here. I hate this technique. I want retro. And I want Gothic. But I don't want the Eurojank. I hate the Eurojank. And I just hate this community that accepts, or even celebrates, Eurojank. So there seems to be a real genetic incompatibility between me and the way I experience the game, the way I feel, and the way the German or even Polish Eurojank community felt. And I have explained in detail why the German, Piranha Bytes, Eurojank community in particular pisses me off. And why I actually feel completely incompatible with their opinions and their statements. And I hope that I am not friendly, or as someone wrote, that I come across as sympathetic to them. But that I come across as I would like to. And now let's take another look at this in detail. And we are now going into the English-speaking, Eurojank community. And who is the English-speaking, Eurojank community? They are mainly Poles and Russians. And this disgusting, trolling network, which wants to make this, Gothic 1 Remake Game 2024. Or which also made this, playable teaser 2019. This has a Discord server. And now let's take a look into the Discord server, what they say there. And one of them writes here. So we have to cut out entire Gothic 2. So here they discuss that Gothic 2, especially the remake, should be completely cut out. So they say that Gothic 2 is boring, it's dull, and you should just delete it completely, and so on. So I've read in detail what they write. And of course my opinion is, of course they only write garbage. Cattle garbage. I've only read boring stuff. What I've also noticed on their Discord server is that only about 5 people are active. There's this guy here, this guy there. This guy here. Then we have this guy here. This one. And this one. These are actually the only really active people here in this Discord server. And they spam everything full of some kind of brain farts. And of course, as a Gothic fan, I also ask myself, what are they doing there anyway? Why are they even bothering with this computer game? So I'm 100% sure. So of course I can maybe explain that a bit more next time, that this Gothic 1 Remake Game 2024 will be 100% a flop. And will not be 100% what you expect. In a decent way. There is simply not a single argument for it. There's not a single argument that they would be able to make a worthy Gothic game. There's just not a single argument. So I can go through all the arguments now. Craftsmanship. Do they have the craftsmanship at all? No, they don't. Do they even understand the story? Did they even understand the story? Neither. That is, I'm just reading garbage here. They're all such strange creatures. For example, this guy here is a completely disgusting creature. So if you look at him, for example on Twitch. Here he is. If you look at him here on Twitch, he mumbles to himself. I don't understand anything he says. So really nothing at all. I mean, of course I'm not that well practiced in speaking. Or speaking in such blatant soliloquies. Like with Let's Play and stuff. But with this guy there. And he's such a creature, he's somehow no idea, 40 years old, and stuff. And he sits there in his room all day. And plays some inferior computer games. So just as a person, that's an absolute total failure. And then I ask myself, why do these disgusting creatures even bother with it? And above all, these disgusting creatures have been commenting on me the whole time. I was called Tata on Steam. And he writes here, for example, Tata is a legend, everyone knows Tata. And he writes that here yesterday. So yesterday he wrote, just yesterday, that I'm a legend, and that everyone knows me, so to speak. So what I wrote online. And when was the last time I was on Steam platform? When did I write anything? A year and a half ago. So I think I was blocked there on Steam platform a year and a half ago. Here by this disgusting person, by this disgusting moderator. And now I haven't had a single sign of life from them for a year and a half. And then yesterday I'm mentioned again. It's very irritating. And then they write something like, I've found something that I really want to show again, or that I want to talk about, and that's this topic, swamp shark wrestling. So we have a Eurojank in Gothic 1, we have the swamp sharks, the swamp shark monsters. They look like a huge willy crawling around like that. And that's definitely Eurojank, which needs to be completely removed, which needs to be completely left out in some form of remake or something. And he's totally fixated on this, swamp shark wrestling. He wrote here, all I want, or all I expect, from Gothic, is that you can buy a pillow, a full body pillow, with a swamp shark, that is, swamp shark monster printed on it. And that I can then wrestle. So with whom I can then wrestle? So here, swamp shark wrestling, that's the big topic here on this Discord server. And there we are now looking at something on the subject. So I don't know exactly what nationality he has here. But we are going to take a look at the Russians in particular. We have this video. I already showed it yesterday. It's a really good video. And we are going to take a look around, we are going to take a look at another place. This one here. Hey Konstantin. Do you better mental health? I am from Russia, we don't have mental health. So how do you deal with mental health? You drink vodka, you go out, and wrestle bear. You live, you feel better. If you die, you were no real man. What about the bear's feelings? It is Russian bear, it has no feelings. People don't always realize the physical symptoms, headaches, teeth grinding, and even digestion issues that can be indicators of stress. And let not forget about doom scrolling, not sleeping enough, sleeping too much, undereating and overeating. Sleeping too much, undereating, this is Western disease. So how do you deal with mental health? You drink vodka, you go out, and wrestle bear. You live, you feel better. If you die, you were no real man. So how do you deal with mental health? You drink vodka, you go out, and wrestle bear. So here we have the word, wrestle. So a real Russian has no mental health, so he's like pure cattle. And a real man does a bear, wrestle. And wait, and let's look at the next video. And I have this one here. Russia, so this is about Russia. And what the Russians are like. So what their mentality is. Let's take a look at that. The street war makers also like to take stories from the Kremlin youth Staffum. Especially popular are posts in which petite female parking offenders go berserk. The Kremlin finances the young parking attendants. Tries to discipline reckless drivers. Fewer wrongly parked cars. Fewer traffic jams. That's the calculation. Get your hands off my car and stop filming, you bastards. This time the activists have to take a lot of punishment. Look at her scratching, let's report her. Okay, so that's the Russians, so to speak. Or that's the Russian mentality, so to speak. Who hang out here in the Discord server all the time. And want to discuss Gothic here. So okay, so much for that topic. Here, English-speaking Gothic community. And here the publisher, here this disgusting trolling network, has decided to invite mainly these people. So English is not so important here. But here Russian, Polish. So I ask myself, what's the point? So what's the point behind it? So I didn't understand at all what the point was. What I do know is that we definitely won't get anything from this disgusting trolling network. And it's really crass what kind of creatures you have to deal with. Or who you get mobbed by when you're dealing with Gothic. It's unbelievable. I personally don't know at all, I don't understand at all why Poles, Russians, or even people from North Rhine-Westphalia, deal with it at all. It's pointless, if you're from these regions, to comment on anything with me in any way. So we've now established, of course I could talk about how my ancestors and so on commented on the Russians. And yes, I'd better leave that for now. And now I'd like to talk very briefly about the subject of remasters. I would definitely like to go into the subject again. That is definitely very important to me. And here. Now it's again about the question, what is copyright protected in a computer game? So in a computer game, everything that is quasi, the movie is copyright protected. So gameplay and combat system is not copyright protected. So you can just take that from the other game. The setting theme is of course not copyright protected either. So what is the setting theme of the Legend of Ascen game 2018? So Italy, and the Romagna, and so on. So basically, anyone who can develop computer games, could actually immediately take the gameplay from Gothic2, take the combat system from Gothic2, and take the setting theme from Legend of Ascen game 2018, and then finally make a remaster out of it. And with the story and the characters, of course you have to ask the original developers of Legend of Ascen game 2018 whether you can just take their characters and their story. So what does story mean? So their storytelling, how the story is structured exactly, and how the dialogue is written verbatim, whether you can just take it all like that. And that would be the only copyright, so to speak. But I have to say, there has to be a remaster. So for me it's like this, where I always think to myself, when I think about it now, which computer games do I want to play in the future? Or which computer games interest me at all? Then I actually say the remaster of Legend of Ascen game 2018. That's the one I would finally want the most. And all the other games, let's take something like Gothic Reboot, for example. I still see that in the very distant future. Because the way I imagine it, the main story of Gothic, I don't think it can be realized yet. So when I look at trailers like The Last of Us Part I Remake 2022, for example, I also say, or for example this medieval game, A Plague Tale Innocence game 2019. And unfortunately you have to realize, no, the technology is not ready yet. You can't do a reboot of the Gothic. So you can't tell the main story yet. But the prequel, the general Gothic prequel. So also the prequel of Legacy of Kain game 1997-2003, or of Shadow Man game 1999, and of Skyrim game 2011, and so on, you can tell that. With retro. And here, Night Dive Studios, has this engine here, this, KEX engine. And everything they do is actually uninteresting. It's really only about this one, Shadow Man game 1999. I played that. And they made a remastered version of it. And as you can see immediately, the graphics of Shadow Man game 1999 also look very similar to Gothic. It's obvious that Shadow Man game 1999, which was released in 1999, simply has the engine from Gothic 1 and Gothic 2, which only came out 2 and 3 years later. So it's clear that they've stolen something from Shadow Man game 1999, so the graphics. And what kind of engine is that anyway? So I think that's the original engine. That's just the Quake engine. So this standard Quake engine. And here, Shadow Man game 1999 Remastered isn't even listed in the KEX engine. So I don't know exactly, so I don't know explicitly which engine they used to make Shadow Man game 1999 Remastered. But that's how Legend of Ascen game 2018 Remastered must look like. And what's the model? Of course this one, the Forgotten City game 2021. The Forgotten City game 2021 was also a mod of Skyrim game 2011. And then they managed to release this game, actually exactly 1 year ago. Exactly 1 year ago they released it. So they made this Skyrim mod into a computer game of its own. And that's exactly what I would like to see for Legend of Ascen game 2018. And that brings us back to the subject of the title. So I think Legend of Ascen game 2018 should also be renamed. So it shouldn't be called Legend of Ascen game 2018 Remastered. But it should be called Legend of the Romagna. That would actually be the perfect title. Or any other title. Okay, here we go. So here's my clear statement about the remastered version. So there's actually nothing that's a major obstacle now. So you can think again about what justification a Legend of Ascen game 2018 remastered version would have now. And there are also 3 points. namely humor. So all the games, big games that are coming out now, are completely humorless. And as we have already noticed while playing, I think, Legend of Ascen Game 2018 has a really great sense of humor. So the new games are completely humorless. And, Legend of Ascen Game 2018 has humor. So it can definitely have a great strength. Then of course the retro gameplay. So I also find such games, for example, something like Red Dead Redemption 2 Game 2018 or like A Plague Tale Innocence Game 2019. Or other games like that, other current games I also find very exhausting. So they're also very exhausting games. And, Legend of Ascen Game 2018 is just such a total relaxation too. So if it wasn't such a technical disaster now, it would just always be this game where you come back to recover a bit from these very exhausting games. And then there is a third point where, Legend of Ascen Game 2018 could definitely score points. And that is the topic, I have already explained this in detail, this is the topic of low fantasy. In computer games that tend to go in this direction, pornography. For example, the absolute prime example is, The Last of Us Part I Game 2022. This is actually pornography. It is a game. What does pornography mean? It's a computer game that clearly dictates to the player what they have to think and do in every situation in which the player plays this game. And we don't have that with low fantasy. Low fantasy doesn't dictate to the player what they have to think and do. And with low fantasy we have this phenomenon that very many people, and I would almost say 99% of all people who somehow actively comment on this computer game on YouTube or Twitch have not understood the computer game. That means that these people hang on to this computer game, which they have not understood, almost forever. In the case of Gothic, it's mainly Poles, Russians, and people from North Rhine-Westphalia who simply didn't understand this game. And then they hang on to it for ages, so to speak. And that means that these computer games never die. Because there's always someone who somehow asks. So hey, I didn't understand the game. How do you feel about the game? Or, there's always someone. So the game is always under discussion, so to speak. And that's different to current games. Like for example, The Last of Us Part I Game 2022. That's a game that 100%, or let's say 99% of all players, have understood. So everyone has understood this game. And if all players who are interested in this game have played this game. So all players have played this game, so those who are potentially there. Then this game is, The Last of Us Part I Game 2022, no matter how great it is, or how bad it is. It's then dead. Unless there's a remake or a remaster or something, so that it attracts new players again. But otherwise it's then dead. Because okay, everyone has agreed that they have understood the game. The game is then removed from the discussion, so to speak. And we don't have that with low fantasy. And of course games that die completely are also, Eurojank. So, Eurojank games, they're actually already dead when they're released. So let's take something like, LX2 Game 2022, for example. That was released, and bang, it was actually dead straight away. So there are objective reasons. So of course I also mentioned the objective reasons last time, that of course the story is also very relevant for the US region, so that probably, so if it was released now, a lot of people from the US would be interested in it. So there are, for me, so many arguments why there finally has to be a remastered version of Legend of Ascen Game 2018. While there is no argument that this disgusting, trolling network could make a worthy, Gothic 1 remake 2024. So where there is not a single argument, there are very many hard arguments that a Legend of Ascen Game 2018 Remastered could be very well received and could be really great success. And I don't understand at all how, I haven't heard any justification either. I don't remember anyone saying that a Legend of Ascen Game 2018 Remastered makes no sense for this reason. But it's just a total failure. It's laziness. It's failure. And yes, it's just all these cattle hordes who just discuss Eurojank all the time, so that you don't even discuss something like Legend of Ascen Game 2018, so to speak. So and that's why my urgent imperative once again, Legend of Ascen Game 2018 Remastered, or whatever it should be called in the end, is what I really want. What moves me to the English-speaking community, and this is mainly this, Discord server. Here someone wrote from the Balkans region. It feels like the majority of people who comment online on the topic, Gothic 1 Remake 2024 believe that it will be a flop. He had replied to the sentence that what if the new content will be so good that everyone will say that they fixed everything that was wrong or bad about the original. And yes. And they did everything right. Exactly, so it's definitely the case that this trolling network will be a 100% flop. So these are also people here, for example, they don't deal with Gothic at all. So he plays some low-quality games all the time that have nothing to do with Gothic. And they don't deal with Gothic at all. And as I said, of course I wonder why they're there at all, why they deal with it at all. And I've read around what they say. And it's all garbage. It's all garbage what they say. It's all worthless. It's all off-topic. And the only really interesting thing where I could say, okay, that's quite interesting now, is this, Swamp Shark Wrestling. Because that simply explains why the Poles, or the Russians, are involved at all, or are present at all. The most blatant. I've already said that clearly. The thing that gets on my nerves the most is the German-speaking, YouTube community. German-speaking people who spam YouTube and call their videos so-called Gothic content. So they always talk about making videos about Gothic content. And these people get on my nerves the most. So I have to be honest. First of all, these people are new. They weren't there I think 2 or 3 years ago, they weren't there at all. They weren't present at all. They're actually something completely new. This is this community here, that's what they call themselves. And they spam YouTube full. These people get on my nerves the most because they spam full. That is, I go to YouTube, and I always experience the signs of life from these people. Actually almost daily. And that is extremely disgusting and disgusting for me. So here from these English-speaking people, I only experience the signs of life when I actively inform myself. So when I actively look in their forum, what are they doing? How do they express themselves? And then then I find out about their signs of life. But here these German-speaking creatures, who just fill up and spam my everyday life with their disgusting signs of life. In the end, these people are like internet beggars. Yes, it's like when you go to work. And there's this one bum, this one homeless person, I'll say it now, this one beggar. Yes, this one, internet beggar is there. And you go to work every day, And every day there's this bum. And at some point you get so used to this disgusting bum that you think, okay, I have to talk to him now and just give him a piece of my mind. And that's exactly what I did. And that's why I was blocked by all these disgusting creatures. Because at some point I just got used to these disgusting, internet beggars. So please, just get off the internet. Because there is no reason why you are even present. Or do you want to? Or do you want to? Yes, as I saw it, there are all these disgusting creatures here who are under 30 years old. If you continue to be present here now, continue to be present here on YouTube. Do you want to become disgusting creatures like this guy? Here, do you want to be one of those? Or someone like that? I think he's already over 30. Well, he also once said that he was over 30 years old. So do you then want to become such creatures? Like that or like that? Yes, who practically have no life. Who are just there on the internet all day 24/7 as internet beggars. And somehow litter them with their signs of life. But if you want to be that, or if you want to be that, then get the fuck out of YouTube. Go somewhere where people don't notice your disgusting signs of life every day. Go somewhere where they would have to spend a lot of effort looking for you. If you somehow want to know what you are doing. So that's ultimately all I have to say here to the English people, and to this disgusting YouTube community, to these disgusting YouTube creatures. And now we come to the very last group, which I definitely want to comment on. And this is this forum, or this guy here. And then let's see what they write. And how they express themselves here. Namely, they have their forum. And he writes here his idea, or his expectation, what he imagines, what Gothic is in general. Or he writes here how he interprets Gothic, that is Gothic 1. So I can repeat again. So for me Gothic 1 is 50% Gothic, that is Gothic art, or tells about the main story of Gothic. To 50%. And 50% is Gothic 1 from 2001, Eurojank. So some fart on garbage. What is not Gothic in Gothic 1? For example, this theme of prison is not Gothic, that is, Eurojank. Open air prison. Open air prison. Prison atmosphere. So he writes here that what is particularly important to him about the remake is that it simply comes across that this is an open air prison. And then I ask myself why this creature, which is probably over 40 years old, stays awake 24/7. With also the effort of hosting a website. Why this creature spends his free time at all, or I don't know, probably also unemployed and doing it full time. Why he deals with such topics. And why this is so important to him. Why is it so important for him to clarify, Gothic 1 by Piranha Bytes is something. But it is above all an open air prison. So that's the most important thing for him, so to speak. And now it is like this, and that. That's why I'll explain again why this is a creature. But this person is ignorant about the topic of open air prison. So for him it's not about typing open air prison into Google search or copying it and looking there. Okay, open air prison. What happens if I activate the Google search or another search? What is an open air prison anyway? He doesn't care about this topic at all, open air prison. But we are now looking at the topic, open air prison. Namely there is the San Pedro prison in Bolivia. And yes, for example, Pro 7 Galileo magazine has already reported on it. So that's why, I also rate this as general knowledge. Because it was on TV. And here, Galileo Pro 7 magazine reported about it. But apparently this creature doesn't watch TV, and refuses to acquire the most basic, elementary general knowledge. Yes, basic. So acquiring the most basic, elementary general knowledge is adamantly refused here. So these disgusting creatures persist in being stupid and ignorant. But as you saw in the playable teaser, from this trolling network, the people behind the playable teaser are not that ignorant. Because it was obviously the case that the playable teaser had a very, very Spanish touch. And here something like open air prison is also something Spanish. Here with Bolivia. So let's take a look. Okay, so that's exactly the setting of Gothic 1, as he wrote it here, open air prison. So the guards govern themselves. And then there is always a lot of discussion here about the topic of women. So now let's take a look at women in open air prison. So the criminals, the serious criminals, live with their families. Okay, what are felons? Well, that's what's being discussed here too. Here child molesters, rapists. So he thinks that there must be rapists and child molesters in a prison like this. So the topic is being discussed here. So now let's take a look at the families. Namely, for example, this place. So there are the children now. Okay, so in a real, open-air prison live women and children. And not just men. So that's the reality now. Apparently they have now dealt with, for example, if you really want to deal with this topic now. No, they don't want to. Now I'm thinking, okay, why are they over 40-year-old men dealing with this topic, open-air prison for 20 years, 24/7? And the only thing that came to mind is this, the film, Führer X film 2002. This is such a GDR film. So this is about the GDR. That is people from the GDR. And then he writes then. Wait, he'll write something here. Wait here. This is actually a prison, where one's own life counts for nothing and the individual has no rights, only those who have power have something to say. Everyone else is basically just slaves. Okay, what is the film, Führer X Film 2002 about? So the film, Führer X Film 2002 is about a young man named, Heiko. That a blonde Germanic man with. No, I think, Heiko. No, Heiko was the Slavic. Exactly, Heiko is a Slav, or vice versa. It does not matter. So one of them, Tommy or Heiko is of Slavic descent, so somehow of Polish or something similar descent. And the other is a Teutonic, that is, of Germanic descent. And they are now ending up in prison because they tried to escape from the GDR and were caught. And then there's this scene. Let's take a look at the film here. Where did they put you in? Station B. Then you are directly below me. You can't sit there. How come? The bank is still free. That doesn't work. You can't sit here, subhuman, only, Friedhelm sits there. Where is that? Are you deaf and stupid, right? Hey, Bernd. Hey, Heiko, you can't sit there, come get up. Are you stupid? Do you know who it is? Okay, so it's about authority, now in prison. And then authority is restored, so to speak, through rape. So he is then raped. There's this rape scene here. Since he is somehow beaten. Here he is raped. And then he apologizes for. Okay, so this is now, Führer X Film 2002. And that is also an issue now, for example. I would say also from the main story of Gothic. Because it's like that in Gothic, it happens, yes. So rape isn't actually a real theme in Gothic, it's actually, Reaper. So definitely, what is definitely a theme in the main story is mental health. That someone's mental health is then attacked. And as a result the authority is lost. But I don't know exactly what that has to do with Gothic, so now with Gothic 1. So that's not really the focus. And accordingly I don't know at all what they are discussing here. So they're basically discussing this here all the time. But tagged it as Gothic Forum. Then I ask myself, why do they do that? Well, as I said, I still haven't understood why they're there at all, why they're even present. There are a lot of people who say that this Gothic Forum is there for the mods. There are people who publish their mods. And that's why it's really great that it exists. But now that's how it is, and that's just my opinion. The only mod that exists that was ever worth seeing or good in any way is, or even the only game, or even what you should know, is, Legend of Ascend Game 2018. The only thing worth seeing, that this forum has produced, is, Legend of Ascend Game 2018. Exactly, and otherwise we realize that these are all people who don't even know why they are there. Who don't even know themselves. Who also didn't understand. Who don't understand it either. And who don't understand all this Gothic art at all. Exactly, that's all I wanted to say about the communities. Those who are present, that is those who are still there. This is this, YouTube community, this English community, and the German one, the German forum, let's say the German forum, and you can simply say, final. So the Gothic one, the Gothic reboot, is actually, you can now say, dead. Because the only people who could theoretically do that are the Americans. If the Americans say, okay, we'll do Gothic, okay, then maybe there's hope. But the Europeans. So there is no one present. There is no one there. There are, and then there are also these three communities that have now become so entrenched here, where it is really difficult to ignore these people or even to destroy. There is actually no possible marketing either. So if I now, for example, if I now think about it, okay, I'm going into the gaming industry now. I'm now getting into the computer games industry, and I'm now doing Gothic reboot, so that's what I'm saying now. So if I started today, yes, would start today. Then maybe we'll say yes in 6 years, 7, 8 years. Let's say 2030 like this. And then all this shall appear. And then I'm in a position where I invest my time, my real full time, yes, my real full time, and all my money there. And of course I would want to make money with it. And yes, then I would also want to make money with it. And then there has to be some marketing and a target group. So who am I doing this for? And I have to say, quite honestly, that there is this one computer game developer who has now made computer games simply as therapy. So he was somehow under psychiatric treatment, so this one who made the Enderall mod 2016, this Skyrim game 2011 mod. He wrote on Twitter that he was somehow abused, by his mother, or by some woman or something. And then was in psychiatric therapy. And then as therapy, he made Enderall mod 2016. So it didn't really matter to him whether he sold it or whether he made money with it or something like that. And then he just did it, just as therapy. And maybe it could also be the case that Legend of Ascen Game 2018 was created in such a way that they simply did it as therapy. And I have to say, that's not me. So I wouldn't build a computer game, I wouldn't spend years of my life developing computer games full-time, just as therapy. Because I have no idea, because I would find that funny. But for me the very clear goal would be to earn money with it. And I have to say one thing, there's one thing standing in the way, and that's these three communities. These three communities are in the way. Here the German YouTube community, the German forum here, the German forum community. And the English-speaking community, especially from Poland, and the Russians. And the few people I could theoretically respect, like this one. He already recognized it, the one from the Balkans region. He has already realized that it will be a 100% flop here. And that which is in the way. So I'll say it quite clearly, I would never, ever risk my money in any way. Or even risk my lifetime, as long as these three disgusting filth communities are present. Because none of these people who are present here 24/7 understand Gothic art, even know why he/she is present. These people don't know why they are there in the first place. As long as these people are there, I for one, would not risk my time or my money. Because I have nothing to say to these people, these disgusting creatures, or anything to communicate. And everyone who somehow has my wavelength, like the one here, for example, a little bit, hear the way he writes. He also thinks like me, it can't work, it's a flop, they don't understand Gothic. But he wouldn't get into the gaming industry to do something like that now. So these three people. So I'm talking now, what am I talking about now? I'm now talking about Gothic Reboot, that is about the main story. And in order for the Americans to be able to do the main story at some point, or so that I could do the main story at some point, I think one thing definitely has to happen. And this is the prequel. Yes, the prequel is not as extremely challenging to make, especially psychologically, and so on, as the main story. So the main story is definitely, when I think about it, so I'm writing down everything I have to say about Legend of Ascen Game 2018, or to what extent Legend of Ascen Game 2018 is Gothic. Then I come up with maybe no idea, 4 pages, 4 Dina 4 pages. So, Legend of Ascen Game 2018 on point, or the Gothic prequel on point, 4 pages, I would say. And with the main story, that is with the Gothic reboot, I have no idea, I've written 100, 200 pages, at least. And I will probably think of many more. And that's just on point. That's not the stories and the side stories that are then told in detail. These are not yet the concrete dialogues. These are not the specific stories yet. That's just what is that all about. What is that, summed up as briefly as possible, what it's all about. And the main story is, I don't know, 200 pages long. And in the case of Legend of Ascen Game 2018 maybe only 4 or 5 pages. And therefore the first thing that has to happen. And if that doesn't happen, then there's no hope at all for the Gothic reboot, and everything is completely ridiculous. So everything these people are discussing here is completely ridiculous because the Gothic reboot hasn't even come to fruition as a remastered. And that's why it's important that we now take another look at Legend of Ascen Game 2018. Because without this remastered there is no hope. No hope whatsoever of Gothic reboot ever. This remastered, whether this even comes about and how it is received at all, is the parameter, whether this is even possible Gothic reboot. And especially for those who could theoretically build Gothic reboot, it is the parameter for those even thinking about ever entering the gaming industry. As long as there is no Legend of Ascen Game 2018 Remastered, and or no Legend of Ascen Game 2018 Remastered is any kind of success, no one who could actually do Gothic reboot would ever risk their money and their life. And now I will address the global phenomenon, namely the global phenomenon, Eurojank. And especially, Eurojank alike, that is computer games that are like Eurojank. That is computer games, or in general this trend or this idea that computer games can be published, namely by trolling networks. That is that computer games are published without dignity but without malicious intent. That is computer games that are really bad without any malicious intent are called Eurojank alike. And I would now like to discuss this in detail. Because of course the global phenomenon of the Eurojank alike, the mortal enemy of every remastered and every remake, of all computer games in general. And the trolling network that disguises itself as a computer game publisher. And really just. That is the main source, or the main cause, of Eurojank alike, that is of computer games that are bad without any malicious intent, or of computer games that have no dignity. The trolling network in general is of course the Embracer Group. And I would now like to talk about them in detail. And at the end I would like to go into how I was treated by them, especially on the Steam platform. So, Steam platform is the platform where you can have your timeless opinions, and also the final reviews, published. And how I was treated on the Steam platform. And I would like to go into it globally at all. So now I have unfortunately completely neglected to prepare one thing. But I'll catch up on that real quick before we get started. And I have prepared a lot of things. So first a quick repetition. Namely, we are now going to the Discord server from this disgusting, trolling network again, and someone wrote a really good sentence. He wrote, here. Don't mess with the Piranha Bytes fans, they hate 6 of their 8 games. Then someone says, yes, that's exactly how it is. Yes, and I see it that way too. So what does hate mean? So for me personally it's like that, so as I said, I also rate Gothic 1 and Gothic 2 as Eurojank. And Gothic 3 was definitely a blatant trauma for me. I also bought that when it was released, on the first day. Just like I bought Gothic 2 when it was released. From 2009 to, let's say 2012, I was completely away from computer games. And I didn't even notice that. And I looked at what Piranha Bytes did after Gothic 3. And so I didn't buy a single Piranha Bytes game at all after Gothic 3. Well, I think I bought Risen 1 game 2009 somehow during the sale at some point. I played through this once. That was completely rubbish for me too. And then I bought Risen 2 game 2012 twice for less than $1, I think at a sale at some point. And all the other games, something like LX1 game 2017, and so on, I never bought. And so it seems that even here, with these creatures here in this community, it seems that praising Piranha Bytes, or even being a Piranha Bytes fan at all, is really akin to a mental illness or a mental disability comes. Because how can you miss 6 games? Okay, you have, so, Piranha Bytes has now made 2 games that are somewhat okay, and I have now also talked in detail about the technical implementation. So I can only repeat what an absolute catastrophe the technical implementation of Gothic 2 is. And yes, Gothic 1, I think it's 80% a construction site or something like that anyway, technically. And unfinished and everything. So Gothic 1 and Gothic 2 are also unfinished in terms of implementation, not of the setting theme, not of the story, but of the implementation, of the technical implementation, and an absolute outrage actually. An absolute disaster. And all the other games that Piranha Bytes made are completely garbage. But apparently there are all these mentally handicapped people on YouTube and stuff right now who are determined to ignore these 6 out of 8 games. And yes, well, I've gotten into that now. So now, wait, there's another video that explains incredibly well what Eurojank is. Namely here from this, I would say, Turkish or Arabic looking American. And with that, I also subscribed to his YouTube channel and almost always like his videos. Because he is completely on my wavelength. So for me that's someone who I say is a friend to me, I'm on the same wavelength with them. This is such a soulmate of mine. And yes, he lets himself off here he deals with the topic of Eurojank. And yes, he's into this Eurojank stuff here. And he made a video here, Alex Pain Suffering and Eurojank, where he just explains again really well, explains really well what Eurojank actually is. So I can repeat again. So I'll now give my definition of Eurojank. Eurojank are computer games without dignity. Eurojank are computer games that are extremely bad without any malicious intent. And there is a difference. And that's where we're looking now. Let's take a look at the video here. Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi Disney. So, Disney has Obi-Wan. And in general the Star Wars sequel trilogy, and so on, made it really bad. And wait, let's hear what he says in the video. And it is also important to recognize the difference to Eurojank. And why Eurojank is 1000 billion times worse than Disney, or than The Last of Us Part 2 game 2020. Or as Amazon, here with the Lord of the Rings series 2022. Why, Eurojank is 1000 times worse. Okay, let's listen to this. They don't want you as a fan. They don't want you watching the movies. They don't want you going into the parks. They don't want you reading the books. Kathleen Kennedy said it herself. They are looking for a new audience. They are not catering to the same old people anymore. And as a result what we have seen from Disney Star Wars, is that they prioritize virtue signaling, identity politics, diversity and inclusion, ahead of everything else. They destroyed continuity. They have assassinated so many characters. They even go back and changed original characters retroactively, in order to fit into the world that they want to create. And that is exactly what we are going to talking about today. Because here is the headline. New Star Wars Padawan prequel novel implies Obi-Wan Kenobi is bisexual. It's not enough for them to recreate the original characters, to shove into these stories, to match their virtue signaling. They have to go back and destroy original characters, and recon original characters, and take them like scalps for the LGBTQ community. Just like they did with Lando Calrissian. They turned him into a robot fucking pansexual. That is what they are doing in order to appease the new fan basement. In reality they don't actually financially support anything. They don't buy books, they don't buy comics. All they do is tweet. And they unfortunately. Okay, so he's talking about the new target group. So, Disney clearly says here. Okay, there was the old target group, there was the old target group. And now there is the new target group. Again, Disney Star Wars, is that they prioritize virtue signaling, identity politics. Kathleen Kennedy said it herself. They looking for a new audience. They are not catering to the same old people anymore. And as a result what we have seen from Disney. They are looking for a new audience. They don't want you as a fan. They don't want you watching the movies. They don't want you going into the parks. They don't want you reading the books. Kathleen Kennedy said it herself. They are looking for a new audience. They are not. So okay, we can see here, for example with Star Wars, or The Lord of the Rings, with these franchises, we can see that there is an intention. Yes, there is the intention. So you could say, now the bad intention is that you want to open up a new target group and break with the old target group. You can say, okay, that's the bad intention. You could say it's a good intention. Because you now want to satisfy a new target group that may not have felt addressed before. So there is an intention here. With Eurojank it is like that, with Eurojank it is like that, but we have no intention. These are, Eurojank are computer games or works. These are works without any dignity. And that's actually the case, when I'm now confronted with things that have no intention, and that are simply without dignity, then that's actually the most blatant break with the medium of computer games in general. Because I personally would like to make it clear that I don't want to play or consume computer games that simply have no dignity. Yes, the fact that computer games have dignity is simply the most important thing for me. Because unlike watching a movie that you have no idea about once in your life for 2 hours, it's like this. For example, I now have Days Gone Game 2019, which I've played for 500 hours or something. And yes, people spend thousands of hours sometimes playing computer games. And if I'm now confronted with some kind of stuff that has no dignity and that's now becoming more and more commonplace, then it actually endangers the hobby in a different way than it does now, for example, with films or series. For me, it endangers the hobby computer games in general for me. So let's take films and series. So of course you can be sad that Star Wars or The Lord of the Rings or something like that are no longer part of your hobby of films and series. But there are still series and films that I watch, or not. So for me, this doesn't completely destroy my hobby of films and series. But with computer games, if all computer games are now just Eurojank alike, then that's it. Then I don't play computer games at all anymore. Then I won't buy any more computer games. And I don't watch Let's Plays anymore, for example. I'm no longer part of any community on YouTube and I'm no longer interested. And well. And now of course you can say, okay, what's the reason? So of course, as I said, you can now criticize the developers. So for example he also criticizes the developers. He says that the developer only produces complete garbage. And that's what I say too. So for me it's also Gothic2. And Gothic1 is also contaminated with Eurojank for me. And in terms of technical implementation it was an absolute catastrophe. Well, I hate this hesitation when running. I hate this jerking sound when turning. I hate this texture flutter. I hate this popping of textures. I hate the crashes too. So last time we also had a crash, game crash. And also these long loading times when you somehow load or save or something like that. That pisses me off too. So as I said, of course you have to criticize developers very strongly. And he also recognized something else here. And let's take a look at that now. I never played a Piranha Bytes game before. I had zero expectations going into this game. Piranha Bytes has a very specific fanbase that wants what is essentially the same game, over and over, with a slightly different setting, and maybe slightly better gameplay and graphics, with each generation. Of course there is nothing wrong with that, Piranha Bytes has a very specific fanbase. So he recognized that we here at the Piranha Bytes fans have a race, indeed a human race. Yes, this is the typical Piranha Bytes fan. So anyone who is currently consuming YouTube today, this year today, and enters Gothic in the search, will now know exactly which breed, and which creatures, yes, and what kind dirt here, so the reset get goes in here. And of course, you also have to criticize the community. Because how can it be, as he also recognized here, that 6 out of 8 games are ignored and overlooked, and then, Piranha Bytes is still praised. So how can that be? And then he also recognized that there is a race here, yes a race. And this breed, yes, I already talked about it in detail last time. But the worst thing of all is not this race, or the developer. But the worst of all is the global phenomenon. And yes, so here, let's look at this company. So that's the main problem. Today, very currently today, this is being discussed here. The KEX Game 2003 remake was stopped. So what does that say now? So, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic Game 2003 is different than Legend of Ascend Game 2018, or different from Gothic2, is an RPG, that is a role-playing game. We have here in KEX Game 2003, here we have different endings. So you can decide for the good ending or the bad ending. Will the Sith win? Will the rebels win? How do the Sith win? How do the rebels win? So depending on how we played and decided, the characters survive, the characters don't survive. And the end is then such and such, as the player has decided. So Gothic 2 or Legend of Ascen Game 2018 is an adventure, that is an action-adventure. So we don't decide anything, what the story is like, what the ending is like. So in Gothic 2, or in Legend of Ascen Game 2018 you just click on the movie. And here, Gothic Game 2003 is a real RPG. And if of course, Gothic Game 2003, which I also know, which is not one of my favorite games, I have to say that very clearly, because I just generally don't like RPGs, well I don't like the genre. But, Gothic Game 2003, the way it was made, the way it was told, I found a very, very good computer game in general, even if of course the RPG genre is not my genre. But if Gothic Game 2003 is treated like this again, okay, I mean Gothic 1 with the playable teaser, has already been treated absolutely disastrously. But also now here, Gothic Game 2003 as it is treated. So there is definitely a very, very hysterical discussion going on here. And I personally have to say, as I said through the Gothic, playable teaser and so on, we are dealing with this. We have been dealing with Embracer Group for 2 or 3 years now. And for these people it is something new. So the background information is that, Embracer Group is behind this, Gothic Game 2003 remake. And people don't seem to have really looked into Embracer Group yet. And yes, that's why they are completely shocked and completely hysterical here. So many videos about the Gothic Game 2003 remake here. That it is somehow dead. That development was stopped. So everything from today. These are all videos from today. So many people here react to this, Gothic Game 2003 remake, that it's dead, or that there's no hope. So for I don't know, the next 3 to 5 years, there is 100% no hope. And here so many people are reacting to this today. So it's really amazing how many videos were made here today about this theme. So very, very many people think that they have to comment on this. And these people have missed one thing, and that is this trolling network. Okay, so if we are lucky we can determine one thing, and that is that their stocks are crashing to some extent. I hope that they really go bankrupt and then completely piss off at some point. So I also have to say, please don't invest in this company. Because you will lose your money. Because this is a pure trolling network. So the most they can do and what they have ever produced is LX2 Game 2022. LX2 Game 2022 is the highest quality product they have ever made. And yes, you can see Embracer Group here. So there was someone here who took the trouble to illustrate here again what belongs to Microsoft, what belongs to Rockstar Games Take-Two. And everything that belongs to EA. Everything that belongs to Sony. Here for example, Naughty Dog or other studios. Here, Ben Studio. Here, Ben Studio, who made Days Gone Game 2019, one of the, actually the best game ever from the last few years. And then they have here. It all belongs to Embracer Group. But all these companies. I don't want to offend too blatantly. But all of these companies are junk, all of them. There isn't a single computer game from all of these companies that I like, or that I find any good, or would play. And this is now about this developer, he belongs to Embracer Group. Here this is the one who is supposed to make Gothic 1 Remake 2024. And then there is a developer, namely, Saber Interactive. So there is now discussion as to whether this, Aspire, whether this, Gothic Game 2003 should make a remake, so they are discussing everything here. Or whether he should do that, that is, Saber Interactive. They also belong to Embracer Group, here. And they apparently have so much money that they bought this, Saber Interactive. So in any case, Gothic Game 2003 is a remake and is completely in the hands of the Embracer Group. Here is the announcement again from yesterday that Gothic Game 2003 remake was stopped here. Here, and it's completely paused, development, and yes. They haven't yet realized that it's not like it is here at Disney, which is simply a bad intention. So to somehow deconstruct Gothic Game 2003 remake, or somehow torture the fans here that they have to wait so long, or something like that. But they haven't yet understood that this is a trolling network that simply doesn't want to give computer games any dignity. And that basically has no bad intention, or has no intention, but simply wants to produce, without intention, very bad computer games that have no dignity. These people simply didn't understand or perceive that. But through Gothic 1 Remake 2024 or through the playable teaser, we are, so to speak. So who are we? So for example here. So, for example, I'm completely on the same wavelength with him. We are already vaccinated. So we, who have already dealt here with Eurojank and here with the race of the Eurojank community, we are actually already vaccinated. And we actually already know that it had to happen that way. So here, this is no surprise to me either. I mean, they all seem so surprised here. No, this is no surprise to us. We are vaccinated. Okay, now we come to the final train of thought. And now, so now hear from the discussion. Why is Eurojank interested here now? And here, why is this disgusting, trolling network important here? I mean, it's 100% certain that they won't publish Gothic anyway. Well, I mean, I've given up on it too. And I was blocked too. I'll go into that again in a moment. And for me the topic is 100% complete anyway. So I'm 100% sure that they'll either never release it at all, Gothic 1 Remake 2024, or that they'll just fart out some shit, which will then be exactly like the playable teaser, namely a complete missed topic. Yes, a complete missed topic. And an absolutely 100% off topic doesn't bother me at all. So what would cause me more grief would be a bad remake. Or something like this. That you somehow have no idea, that you say, hey, let's do it now, but the good thing is that unlike here with Star Wars with Obi-Wan or something like that, you can't redefine Gothic. So Gothic is two things. Just like the original was. It is Gothic or Eurojank. But it's not here all of a sudden for, I don't know, a different target group or something like that. There is no other alternative target group for Gothic. So for Gothic 2 or Gothic 1, the only target group there is Gothic. So basically us. We, that is me and for example this, reset get. Or people who, for example, recently watched Squid Game Series 2021 and thought it was good. And the second target group that still exists is the race, here the race of Eurojank fans. These are the two target groups that there are. But there is no third target group, like we have here with Star Wars for example. Okay, now I've told you everything you can tell, here about the KEX Game 2003 remake, about the difference to Disney for example. And now we are going to go into the absolute, yes, the absolute grievance, which completely shocks me. Namely, Embracer Group cooperates under the name Prime Matter. So, Embracer Group is already cooperating with the developer under the name Prime Matter, where they are simply projecting hopes that they could make a remastered of Legend of Ascent 2018. And that is Night Dive Studios. And Night Dive Studios has also cooperated here, for example, with System Shock Game 2023. Prime Matter is also written here. So, Embracer Group is written here. And okay, they don't have it here. But they are in cooperation, System Shock Game 2023, will go straight into the community. And here they have already, as it were, while they are cooperating with Prime Matter, with Embracer Group, they have now published this here. Here, about a month ago. And yes 46% positive. And here 70% positive. So people don't like this game at all. And there are some things that are astonishing. Namely, let's take a look at their Discord server from Night Dive Studios. And there says here, the CEO says here. So he writes here. I think we were review bombed. It's not that bad. Blah blah. Well, he already expresses himself so maliciously. So spiteful about the bad reviews. So he says to himself, yes. But that's how all Embracer Group games are. They are all at most 70% positive. That's fitting for Night Dive Studios. In other words, just as the CEO of Night Dive Studios expressed himself here, he expressed himself here a month ago, so he is already expressing himself in the spirit of Embracer Group. And that, of course, troubles me. Because if he's already expressing himself here in such a way that he doesn't really care that they did this so badly, that this is a typical Embracer Group product, and that it's completely in for Embracer Group. That's okay, then of course I also see my hopes for the remastered, that is that, Night Dive Studios could take over it and then somehow do it well, threatened. And then next here, System Shock Game 2023. Namely okay. Namely with System Shock Game 2023, people always ask, when is it finally coming? And I personally am of the opinion that compared to competing products, if you look at this now, this game, System Shock Game 2023, I can really only repeat my opinion very clearly. So compared to what I wrote here in the Community Hub, that System Shock Game 2023 has no chance at all compared to the competing products. So here at Sci-Fi we have Apocalypse, or whatever it is here, with evil AI, and zombies that kind of run around and stuff, we have such strong competing products. Here, for example, there are some zombies running around here, like in the Callisto Protocol Game 2022, which is coming this year, or the Dead Space Remake 2023, which is coming at the beginning of next year, I think sometime in January. And System Shock Game 2023, which is somehow coming soon, and is therefore in common with Prime Matter here. This has 100% no chance compared to competing products. And this one, System Shock Game 2023, here with some weird zombies and stuff, what it looks like here and stuff. This will 100% be a flop, 100% a flop, and will have no chance against any competitor of the kind. And the way he expresses himself here, so maliciously, yes, fits. Of course that worries me a lot because if they now, after they've done that, after doing this, and getting used to it, and then knock this out, then I have to say, I don't have that anymore. I definitely no longer have any hope that Night Dive Studios could do the remaster of Legend of Ascen Game 2018. Because what I want most, and what I expect most, from the remastered of Legend of Ascen Game 2018, is that it gives the game dignity. That it deletes the Eurojank. And not exactly the opposite, that it then accepts Eurojank and essentially takes the side of this Eurojank publisher, Embracer Group. And then everything is said so well that everything is Eurojank. So as I said, if they release System Shock Game 2023, then I really see my hopes as zero. And yes, I see my hope as zero. And then of course the question is, who should actually do the remastered? Well, in my opinion, I don't know of a single contact person who still has to do the remastered. So when I say, hey, you're the perfect person to do this remastered. So, System Shock Game 2023 caught my eye because of Shadow Man Remastered 2021. Because they have, Shadow Man Remastered 2021, have made it a retro championship, yes a retro, or a retro championship. And that's why I'm so fixated on Night Dive Studios. Because they made Shadow Man Remastered 2021 south well. And then of course I think to myself, yes, they did, Shadow Man Remastered 2021 so well, and then they should now please do the remastered of the other one, that is of the much more important retro game, which of course is Legend of Ascen Game 2018. But, there is a thread of hope, yes, or there is still a thread of hope that they have not yet completely married themselves with Embracer Group. Or a very remarkable thing or fact, namely, their personal presence, firstly, in their Discord server. So the fact that Embracer Group is a 100% complete trolling network can be seen immediately from one fact, for example. Here the CEO of Night Dive Studios is present in his own Discord server. He has written something here 1246 times in the Night Dive Studios Discord server. He is present. He is there in this Discord server. But if we now look at Embracer Group, So here, you can tell from this alone that this is a 100% pure, trolling network. Because the person responsible, who is supposed to do this remake and so on, is not present. We have 0 events here. And then there is somehow a rule or something like that, whoever writes to him here, whoever wants to contact him here, or wants to contact him in some way, will be blocked immediately or something like that. So it's always just a matter of being blocked. So they also wrote down a lot of rules. Where are the rules? Somewhere are the rules. No idea where they are now. In any case, they have lots and lots of rules. Or here exactly a lot of them. Here, look at the rules. They have written down here 7 rules or 8 rules. Or more. So rules are here, so rules are very, very important here in this Discord server and are emphasized here. Here, I'm wondering, if you're reading through this, then I'm asking myself, okay, what should I even comment on? So I mean Gothic, what is Gothic? Gothic is a religious pagan art that is also deeply political. So if, for example, I can't comment on politics and religion and whatever, and on languages, if I can't even comment on languages and everything, well, then I can't actually comment on anything. Then it is clear that only 5 people are active here in the server. And then the person in charge here, who is not even here, who is not even present, here in the server. That's the difference from Night Dive Studios. You realize that Night Dive Studios is not a trolling network. This is a serious developer. Yes, he is a serious developer and is also present himself, in his own server, in his own community. You can actually tell from this that it is trivial, so as I said, this is a trolling network. And this is a serious computer games publisher and computer games developer. And then now we come to me personally. So one thing is remarkable. Namely, here at the Community Hub, yes at the Community Hub, I started a topic here, namely I said my opinion, my hard opinion, namely forget about the boring crap, and release Legend of Ascen Game 2018, Remastered. And that sparked a huge discussion, the biggest one here, with 87 replies. And that's something where I say, okay, Night Dive Studios, that's a developer, that's not a trolling network. Namely, I was not deleted. Here is the whole discussion. To be completely honest, there is also a topic off topic here in the server. 2 or 3 people also answered that they see this as a topic off topic, that it has nothing to do with System Shock Game 2023. And in this post here, or in my texts that I have written here, I have only insulted Night Dive Studios. I just said that their System Shock Game 2023 is complete garbage, that it is a 100% flop, that it is boring crap, that is boring dirt, and yes, and that it has no dignity, that is the System Shock Game 2023 has no dignity, that if they ever release System Shock Game 2023, if they ever release it, that this is just shit, that they are losing their dignity by doing this, that they are losing their dignity in this ask a question. So I insulted them really badly, attacked them really badly. And as you can see, my post has not been deleted. And I also received more or less sensible answers on the topic. And I think that if Night Dive Studios also looks into their Steam platform server, here at Steam platform, then they will also see my discussion here, and they will definitely become aware of it, that there is someone who says, hey, better do a remastered or a remake of Legend of Ascen Game 2018. So I was active here, and I actively expressed my opinion here, and that's how I was treated, and that's how I was treated at Night Dive Studios. So how was I treated? I was treated like a serious publisher and a serious game developer, someone who just gives his opinion and gives his final review. And how was I treated by Embracer Group? How was I treated by Embracer Group? So I'll show that now. Here we have Gothic 1 Classic Community Hub. Then I go to discussion and then it says here. Here, they were permanently banned from the hub. They were shot out by a moderator. Let's move on to the next, Embracer Group game. Gothic2 Classic. Here, they were permanently excluded. I'll show you why I was excluded in a moment. So I was told by a game, so 2 games, so these 2 games, then, playable teaser. They were excluded. And then here we have. Then I became. There we have the Gothic 1 remake. They were excluded. I was excluded. I've been banned from 4 games now. And now comes the 5th game where I was eliminated. I didn't actually buy that. Of course I didn't buy it. Why should I buy this and this, Eurojank? And they were excluded. That is, Embracer Group shut me down or banned me from 5 games. I was suspended for 5 games. And now I'll explain why I was blocked. Namely, let's do Gothic2 first. So wait, I'll put it here clearly. So here we have, Gothic2 Classic Game 2002. Then we have, LX1 Game 2017. Then we have, Gothic 1 Remake 2024. Gothic 1 Classic 2001. And, Playable Teaser 2019. Where did I get that? I didn't even save it. Okay, so here, I was locked out of 5 games I was locked out. And okay, now, Gothic 2 Game 2002. Because I have now been locked out of 5 communities, all of them, Embracer Group, they have even banned me from expressing my opinion on Steam platform or writing any reviews for 2 weeks. Namely here. So last year. So here, from July 27 to August 10, I was no longer allowed to express my opinion on the Steam platform. Because I was locked out or banned from 5 Embracer Group community hubs. So now, I've been banned from the Gothic 2 Game 2002 community. The reason is because I wrote this. Namely, I wrote that I am used to the fact that Gothic 1 Game 2001 or Gothic 2 Game 2002 is only ever purchased as a pirated copy, or played as a pirated copy, and that I, for example, I also purchased and played Arcania Game 2010 as a pirated copy. And exactly that, and I was locked out for that. But that's the way it is. It is like that. You can also now, Legend of Ascen 2018. Now, Legend of Ascen 2018, I don't play via Steam platform. It is, I recently. Should I start Gothic 2 Game 2002? Wait, I'll start Gothic 2 Game 2002 on Steam platform. Then you see what happens then. So I'll start Gothic 2 Game 2002 on Steam platform. So crashed, game crashed. I'll show it again. But first I have to remove the window recording first. I'll show it again now. I'll show it again now. I hope that you can now see it properly. So wait, you didn't see it just now. I now had the wrong recording. I now had a window shot, but I have to. Right now, now you can see the screen capture. As I am. This is now the Steam platform version of Gothic 2 Game 2002. Okay, so now I'll start some save game or restart it. Wait a minute, I'll just start Gothic 2 Game 2002. So it loads. Bang, crashed. So how do I get rid of this stuff? Please let me remove this here. Also access violation. I cannot play Gothic 2 Game 2002 on Steam platform. And I have commented on this. Yes, I commented that. I commented that the game cannot be played on the Steam platform. That it crashes all the time and I'm used to pirating Embracer Group products. And a year later, I still have to say the same thing. Yes, I cannot play Gothic 2 Game 2002 or Legend of Ascen Game 2018 with the Steam platform version. That's what we've seen now. It is still like that. That also means these people, they can't patch anything or anything, they're too incompetent to do that either. I think they have something, I was just trolling again. He somehow wrote one, yes patched it, no, nothing patched, nothing patched. Nothing is patched in Gothic 1 and 2. Here everyone, all this warning here, everything, Embracer Group or Eurojank. Here too, the Chronicles of Myrtana Archolos Game 2021, I was also locked out by this disgusting Polish, Eurojank breed. Here from this race. This disgusting breed locked me out too. Here you can see everything. That's all I've ever been blocked and banned for on Steam platform. And everything is, Embracer Group, is, Eurojank breed. So everything is, Eurojank race and, Embracer Group where I had some problems or whatever with the, Steam platform with the community or something like that. So that was the reason why I was locked out of, Gothic2 Classic 2002. Now let's look at why I was banned from, LX Game 2017. Okay, what did I write there? I have that it, so that's what I was locked out for. Then I wrote that, Embracer Group will disappear from the gaming industry, Embracer Group is a, trolling network, Embracer Group only triggers negativity, Embracer Group sucks. Embracer Group is, here, disaster, moron-like, autism. Here there, E3 appearance was a disaster. Yes, that was a disaster too. This is my opinion. Boy, that's my opinion. And then I was excluded. And all their games are bad and shit. Yes, that is still my opinion, now a year later. And for that I was locked out. Here reason, I have no reason, here there is no reason, here the exclusion is permanent, so to speak forever. Yes, I was forever banned from this disgusting, Embracer Group simply because I expressed my opinion, which I would now like to repeat, word identically, even a year later, and or actually spontaneously. Not somehow learned by heart, but spontaneously. Because what is, Embracer Group a year later? What is, Embracer Group a year later? So today we found out, this. This is, Embracer Group a year later. That means I didn't just write something nasty here and then say, a year later, oh sorry, I was wrong. No, I just didn't honor myself. These people have honored themselves. Here, all these people they have all honored each other. Who believed that Embracer Group could produce anything but some shit? No, Embracer Group can't do anything, it's just a, trolling network. And I realized that a year ago. And a year later the facts are still 100% the same. Let's look at why I was locked out of, Gothic 1 Remake 2024. Namely, I wrote. No justification here either, no justification. I just said that I was doing something on YouTube about the topic, Gothic reboot, and so on, Gothic, content. Okay, bang. Live stream here, I'm doing some live stream, some let's plays. Boom, I haven't even named my YouTube channel yet. I didn't mention my YouTube channel. And hear this, Robar the 5th, he's also a strange creature like this one. It's here somewhere in the Discord server, or, Robar the 5th, we can find him here or... Where is this, Robar? Here, Robar the 5th, that's him. Okay, exactly, we recognize him. That's this one from the Balkans. I wrote here that the only guy I could theoretically be on a date with is from the Balkans, Zach, excluded, permanent. That's why I was excluded from Gothic 1 Remake 2024. Why was I excluded from Gothic 2 Classic 2002? Again no reason is given. Then I wrote. Someone wrote, maybe they will do the Gothic remake of so, maybe they will do the remake of Gothic 2, and soon announcement that they will make Gothic 2 Remake 2. And then I wrote, no, look at what Ubisoft publisher is doing with the Settlers game series. And it says that it was postponed again after great criticism. And here I don't have a bad link or anything, here from GameStar magazine. This is a completely legitimate link. Then I wrote, THQ Nordic publisher wants to do it like Ubisoft publisher. But because THQ Nordic publisher is just some disgusting beastly, Eurojank, trolling network and they can never and will never do it as well as Ubisoft publisher. Because Ubisoft publisher is not a trolling network, but Ubisoft publisher is a publisher and developer. And then he says. I wrote something about the community, and so on. And that's still my opinion, a year later. Or when, no wait. I was the last one to be locked out here, this year, almost half a year ago this year. So here I was locked out almost half a year ago. And that's exactly how it is, and will be. Well, it will be the case that what Ubisoft publisher did with the Settlers game series is many times more valuable, or that will be many times better, than what Embracer Group can and will ever do, with no idea, Gothic game 2003 or Gothic 1 game 2001. So what they did here with the Settlers game series? I don't think so. I'm 100% sure that Embracer Group can never achieve the quality and will achieve what was achieved here with the Settlers game series remake, which is now here indefinitely. Time was postponed. So the Settlers game series remake, which Ubisoft publisher showed us, is also objectively 10,000 times better, in terms of quality, than the playable teaser 2019, or as LX2 game 2022, or than any others completely garbage Eurojank products. And here it happened that Ubisoft publisher almost never gets around to publishing the Settlers game series because it is always criticized to death, and then the Settlers game series is always postponed because it was always completely broken. And fans criticize the Settlers game series remake. And then it is postponed again. It is postponed again. And that's exactly what can only happen with Gothic 1 Remake 2024. But the difference to the Settlers game series is that with Gothic 1 Remake 2024 they made a 100% complete lack of theme. And a 100% complete off-topic tagging as Gothic 1 Remake 2024 is different than now here with the Settlers game series, which may not be good enough or something, is criminal. That doesn't work. Exactly about that, you can also say that in general. Naming a computer game after an art history genre should be completely banned anyway. Gothic is not a computer game, but Gothic is actually a genre of art history. And that alone is already criminal. That alone is criminal, naming a computer game after a genre of art history. That's actually completely illegal anyway. And so as I said, there are so many reasons why I personally don't understand this reaction. This reaction here. Because we are already vaccinated against Embracer Group, through the playable teaser 2019. That was a complete mistopic. It simply wasn't good enough, so it would have to be postponed forever, so to speak. That was criminal tagging. So you can't just name your game after an art history genre. And it was simply theft from the performance, or legacy, of others. About the phenomenon, Eurojank alike. Computer games without dignity. Computer games that are extremely bad without intention, without any malice. There is only one, especially a mortal enemy when it comes to the remastered. And this is above all something that all products are. And all Eurojank products, or the biggest mistake you can make if you want to do the remastered now is of course, over the top. So too much of a good thing. And there is this subtle difference between retro mastery and over the top, but it's for PlayStation 1, or but it's for PlayStation 2. So I'm confronted with a product and I think to myself, wow, that's retro, or I think to myself, that's this Eurojank, over the top shit that I don't want to play at all. The absolute prime example is of course this Polish mod. Here the Polish mod is of course the absolute prime example when it comes to. So if I would now like to give a prime example where I simply have to say, that's not retro, that's over the top, Eurojank, but it's for PlayStation 1. So this Polish mod has really made some fatal mistakes, namely in the over the top area. Namely boss fights here. I find the boss fights in this Polish mod absolutely embarrassing. But to the worst 3 points that the Polish mod also made. So these are the worst points. The mod also made all of them. But let's look at the less important details first. So boss fights. Definitely not in the remastered of Legend of Ascen game 2018, boss fights. Like in Turok game 1997, where there is a blatant life display or something. So really bad. Absolutely no way. Then the lack of humor. I don't even know what this is now. I'm just looking at translator again. Oh, yes, exactly. Also the serious tones. The serious tones that are in the Polish mod. Gothic is for me, like the music videos from Lil Jon music producer that I love so much and that are just so timeless for me. Gothic is always this mixture of aggressive, raucous, and funny, and just funny. And yes. And then also this meditative gameplay. This is essentially the Gothic experience for me. And if you now take such a super serious tone, like with this Polish mod, for example, where you have super violent beheading scenes, or other super serious things, super blatant political conspiracy. But the political conspiracies are not interesting now either. So we're talking now. In Legend of Ascen Game 2018 we also have certain political conspiracies, but they are really interesting. But, so in this Polish mod, there are these political conspiracies, they don't refer to the Renaissance, but they refer to the setting theme, but they refer to some individuals. So some bad mayor or whatever. So some complete crap of political intrigue. And then here's some really cool stuff. So definitely not. Retro always has to be fun, always has to be funny. The very serious things, super serious tones and so on, that's actually always state of the art. So, state of the art always makes these serious tones. So now current computer games that have really top-notch graphics and everything that say, okay, we're just being serious. But retro just has to be fun, has to be funny, and can I show super blatant decapitations, and stuff like that, or how some bodies are mutilated, and stuff like that. Or here in Gothic, exactly, some mutilations and something like that. So something like that is definitely forbidden. This is, over the top. Then what else did I write down? Right then, we also have that in Legend of Ascen Game 2018. Namely, dialogues between several people. So in Gothic2 Game 2002 we only experience dialogues between the protagonist and another person. And there's the talk of the town. And in Legend of Ascen Game 2018 we also have this situation where several NPCs are talking to each other, and the protagonist is just listening. And I think we did that very, very well in Legend of Ascen Game 2018. I think this only happens once in the game to really give this situation a certain emphasis and a certain importance. So that's a stylistic device, so to speak, that Legend of Ascen Game 2018 does, which I just think is very successful. But in the Polish mod we have these dialogues between several people all the time. And I find that completely junk, and completely Eurojank. If I want to experience a game where several people discuss with each other, then I'll play current games. I don't feel like sitting here with a retro game like this, spending hours on end looking at the strange, blocky faces talking to each other. And then I hear that I have to listen to them all the time. So as I said, if I want to experience a game where several people discuss among themselves, the protagonist just watches it first. Then I play current games with Unreal Engine 5 and not a retro game. So this gameplay in which several NPCs talk to each other and whoever is the hero has to watch, that's a stylistic device. And Legend of Ascen Game 2018 does that very well, and this Polish mod does that again, over the top. Then I also wrote down that embarrassing new monster ideas are really bad. So in this Polish mod we have, for example, as a new monster we have the bear. We have frog people. We have flies that somehow spit on you with a chemical like that. And I think that too, that is also completely forbidden. So there's no way any weird, embarrassing new monster ideas in the remastered. So in any case, that's also really bad, over the top. What I have of course already said several times is that I would like existing monsters to be replaced by monster ideas that fit the setting theme better. So, for example, replacing this fantasy, scavenger monster in design with a metaphorical representation of the quail or the pheasant. That you do that, for example. Or that you simply come up with monster ideas that simply fit the setting theme better. But then they replace these Eurojank monsters. So, for example, they replace the Shadowrunner monster. Or they then replace the Warren monster. Or they then replace the Harpy monsters. But it's not like that. So under no circumstances is it allowed in the remastered that we have all these Eurojank monsters. And then on top of that, we have even more embarrassing monsters, like frog people or something. Exactly, then next what the polls? Well, that's what I criticized most blatantly. That's why I stopped. These are the walking paths. So the walking paths in the Polish mod reminded me extremely of Minecraft game 2009. So like really, like if I now make a flat world in Minecraft game 2009 and everything is super stretched out. And you have eternal roots and stuff like that. And then you just notice that the Poles fundamentally don't understand computer games. In a computer game, the main question is, how can I prevent walking paths through gameplay or through design? That's what the computer game is about. In computer games. So if I'm running around for ages, then it's a running simulator. And yes, the walking paths bother me. So in Legend of Ascen game 2018 we saw that the running paths are fine. Those are fine. There's of course. Well, what annoyed me a bit last time is that this fast travel, with this monk and this dealer who takes us to the free camp and to the monastery, that he is not always there, and you don't really understand why it isn't there now. Well, I think the remastered should definitely make sure that the dealer is always there. It doesn't matter whether that's logical or illogical, so you can simply shorten the walking distances here. And maybe I would also like for the port to somehow have someone who is a trader or something like that travel regularly to the port, and then you can also travel to the port quickly. And exactly, then the city is too big. So the city is a stark labyrinth. And that's exactly what the Poles did wrong. That was also completely over the top. So clearly of course, Ascen and Arch-Olos is tiny. And now not this gigantic real metropolis of Bologna. Or maybe at most the city center, or whatever of Bologna. But overall you realize, okay, this is supposed to be Bologna. Even if there are only 40 houses here now. Or 10 houses stand. Even if there are only 20 to 40 houses in Ascen and Arch-Olos, I would say, you just feel, okay, this is supposed to be this big metropolis in the heart of Italy. And it's not about putting up 10,000 houses. And instead of somehow having no idea of 4 quarters, what Ascen has. So, Ascen has maybe 4 quarters. To somehow put 1,000 quarters there. As I said, no labyrinths. It is a metaphorical representation. And the most important thing is that you feel the setting theme. And that's what I feel in Legend of Ascen game 2018. I feel the setting theme in Legend of Ascen game 2018. And I feel in Legend of Ascen game 2018 what the city should be, what the port should be, and so on. But with this Polish mod, I don't feel the setting theme. I don't know what this city or this port city, mod Arch-Olos 2021 is even supposed to be. So the port city, Arch-Olos is just something. It's just high fantasy. The port city of Arch-Olos is simply a piece of high fantasy. Well, I just 100% don't feel what this is supposed to be. And then I don't feel like running around in such a huge labyrinth. Also completely over the top. So here we come. Now we come to the 3 biggest, over the top sins that all Eurojank games commit. Namely, if Embracer Group or any Embracer Group studio wanted to make this remaster, then they would make it an RPG. What is an RPG? So I repeat again. So, Legend of Ascen game 2018, and also, Gothic2 game 2002, is an action-adventure, not an RPG. An RPG is a computer game in which choice and consequences are a significant part of the game. So, for example, I choose a faction. Or I choose a gameplay. So for example now, I could play sword. Or I could play magic. Or I could play the bow. I choose a gameplay. And then that has consequences. We don't have that in Legend of Ascen game 2018. It has no consequences for the story or gameplay, or even whether I play with bow or melee. And so, Legend of Ascen game 2018 is like Days Gone game 2019. Days Gone game 2019 I can also play with a rifle, so whatever makes a single strong shot. Or I can play it with just machine gun. Or I can play excellently with a pistol, or with a crossbow, or with whatever. This is my choice. But that has no meaning now. This choice has no meaning, or consequence, to the story, or to the ending. So, Legend of Ascen Game 2018 is clearly an action-adventure. There is no choice and consequences. But if you were to do that now. So if you wanted to introduce choice and consequences now, you would have turned it into a Eurojank. So what else does it include? So I'll first list everything that belongs to the RPG. So to the RPG, choice and consequences, that is an open ending, where the player then chooses what the ending is. Then we can choose between good and evil. And we can also decide about the fate of the companions or friends, or companions. And if you were to introduce all of this in Legend of Ascen Game 2018, then you would have turned it into a Eurojank. Because logic. That, so the retro. Or a retro championship, or the retro championship, cannot be an RPG. An RPG is always a work in progress, and is never the pinnacle of the developer's craftsmanship. An RPG will always have to struggle, with errors, with bugs, and so on. But you can put an action-adventure and say, that's the retro championship. That's why the remastered is of course an action-adventure. With an RPG you'll just fart to, Eurojank. Then what probably or definitely, Embracer Group would do with Legend of Ascen Game 2018 is high fantasy. So I made it very clear that I understand Legend of Ascen Game 2018 as a metaphorical representation of Romagna. How do we find out about Romagna? Mainly through Wikipedia, or through life experience, or from the news. And the retro mastery is of course Gothic or copy and paste, more clumsy, copy and paste from Wikipedia. But if you were to hire a writer, that is an author, to do really crazy stories and whatever. But then they farted on Eurojank again and didn't create the retro masterpiece. So the retro masterpiece can of course only be a game where the writing is essentially from Wikipedia. So the developer is a pure craftsman. And the developer, when he thinks about, okay, what story are we telling? And then, if you want to make the retro masterpiece, then the most important author can only be Wikipedia. So in retro gaming, or in the mastery of retro gaming, it's not about serving the old people, that is farting fan fiction to them, coming up with some kind of fan fiction. And it's not about necessarily demanding a new audience or a new player base. But it's about retro. So anyone who enjoys retro, or who just wants to return to a home like that after playing these overwhelming and exhausting AAA games, so that they simply have a home, so that they. With such a retro masterpiece you can easily create a gaming home for the players. And if you now think about new audience or catering the old people, then you will definitely have farted a Eurojank, but not the ones who built the retro championship. And then very importantly, what is absolutely over the top is always bad acting. So what I love most about Gothic2 Game 2002, or Legend of Ascen Game 2018, are the animations. The animations are hand-built. So these aren't animations that some actor here somehow made, or something like that with motion capture. But these are really hand-built animations. And this craftsmanship gives this retro the timeless charm that I just love so much. You can compare this with films where there are puppets, where all the puppets are hand-built, and so on. Well, I'm so excited too, when there are dolls with so much effort and so much craftsmanship in films. Or for example there is a. So the best horror film I think is The Thing film 1982, by John Carpenter. And there they also did everything by hand. So everything that somehow happens there and stuff like that. Really craft. Not kind of clumsy on the computer or anything like that. Or of course, The Lord of the Rings, where so much was done with puppets, with crafts and stuff, and not just this disgusting CGI was used all the time. And that craft, feeling that, someone crafted animation. And that simply gives the game this power and this charm. And if you now say that this is outdated, you have to do motion capture somehow. You have to use acting somehow. That's exactly the fatal mistake. Then you do a true demake. So if you do motion capture with actors, so that all the animations are given by actors, then you have to do something like, for example, The Last of Us Part 1 Game 2022 or Days Gone Game 2019, where you really with Unreal Engine 5, photorealism graphics, state of the art, here the actors do all the animations. But when you have graphics like that, retro graphics and stuff like that, and Legend of Ascen Game 2018 is supposed to be the remastered, is supposed to be a retro game, then definitely not motion capture animations or any new animations. For example, Arch Olo's Game 2021, this Polish mod, they made new animations. And I thought to myself every time, these animations are so terrible. So the Polish mod really screams at someone like me, that's how embarrassing Gothic2 Game 2002 could have been back then. Such embarrassing animations, such embarrassing acting. So not has, had, but could have had, Gothic2 Game 2002 back then. And so, absolute, demake, somehow making new animation here that just emphasizes how embarrassing old games could have been back then. Well, that was the very, very important topic, over the top. So a very, very important topic for anyone who is thinking about making a remastered here, over the top is the worst thing you can do. With over the top the result immediately becomes Eurojank. So as I said, if you want to experience clear examples of what over the top actually is, you should just play the Piranha Bytes games, or you should just play the Embracer Group games. Just play the latest Piranha Bytes game, and then you'll see what happens over the top. And what kind of rubbish over the top is. Well, I have to honestly say that I can't stand this over the top thing at all. So, over the top is actually exactly the opposite of polished. And in general my YouTube channel is mostly about Gothic games. So, Days Gone Game 2019 for example, I can't do Let's Play or walkthrough at the moment because I don't have the PC. But otherwise I actually have all the games that are somehow Gothic, that is Gothic, on my YouTube channel. That is, Legacy of Kain series 1997 to 2003. I would say. So on my YouTube channel, if I think about it, community. So the most community stuff, so where I say that was the most community, that's Legacy of Kain series 1997 to 2003. Exactly, well, Legacy of Kain series 1997 to 2003 is for me, so is. So according to my. So when I think about it, where did I have the most discussions? Where do I have the most comments? Where did people recognize me? For example, if I comment on something on my YouTube channel somewhere. For example, I commented somewhere on Tejas Shao. For example, I expressed some opinion. Or I commented somewhere on GameStar magazine, then people, for example, replied to me, "Hey, I know you, you're the Legacy of Kain series 1997 to 2003 YouTube channel." Exactly, I'm not the YouTuber. Or I don't belong to the Piranha Bytes community, or from. So for me, for example, with Piranha Bytes there is only Gothic2 Game 2002 and Legend of Ascen Game 2018. So everything else is completely rubbish for me. And I don't play anything else either. So, that's it. And for example, people have asked me, are you also doing a walkthrough of Gothic 1 Game 2001 again? And then I say, no, I'm not doing a walkthrough of Gothic 1 Game 2001 either. Gothic 1 Game 2001 is at least 50% Eurojank. And Gothic 1 Game 2001 is more for the trash YouTube channels. Or also a very, very good question, where do the Minecrawler monsters come from? And yes, so this time, or today, the topic is, over the top, and a really embarrassing fanfiction. So an absolutely horrible, embarrassing fanfiction that was made, who did it? Of course the Polish mod, that is, Arch Olo's Game 2021. And, Arch-Olo's Game 2021 is also on this topic right now, I think in chapter 4 or 5 or so of Arch-Olo's Game 2021. Arch-Olo's Game 2021 really jumped on this topic again. Where do the Minecrawler monsters actually come from? And in Arch-Olo's Game 2021, for example, they also have the swamp shark monsters, made them smaller and then renamed them Minecrawler monster larvae. And so, in Arch-Olo's Game 2021, you can experience another really crazy fanfiction about the Minecrawler monster, where they come from. That is. But if you do the right. So as I said, I can repeat again, if you want to see a really embarrassing fanfiction, then play the Polish mod, Arch-Olo's Game 2021, I think it was chapter 4 or 5. And so, the Poles, exactly the Poles have been busy with, again, where do the Minecrawler monsters come from? Exactly, but the Poles don't think like me. Low fantasy, parasitic ant species, non-parasitic ant species. And this general knowledge, here from the Korean ants documentary. But the Poles who think of this fan fiction, Eurojank. So, if you mean, the ants, they're not, well, that's not a metaphorical representation. Or, Gothic 1 Game 2001, which is high fantasy, then you can play Arch-Olo's Game 2021. And you will definitely have fun there. While, for example, I don't enjoy Arch-Olo's Game 2021 at all. Because I just think to myself, this is a completely embarrassing fan fiction straight from the slap. And, depending on how you understand Gothic. Do I understand Gothic as high fantasy, Eurojank? Or do I understand Gothic 1 Game 2001 as a sketch, as a playable teaser for this topic reboot? And the reboot is of course about Gothic. Exactly, then there is, these are the Minecrawler monsters, the metaphorical representation, and not some strange high fantasy critters. When I'm watching the let's play of this other guy, and he's always running around with his two-handed sword, with his huge two-handed sword. That alone bothers me, that I say, wow, the community has once again discovered, that's Eurojank. Let's look at other breeds of Gothic. So I would especially like to talk about the computer game, Battle Realms Game 2001. So the setting is Japan, or China, or Korea. Gothic in Asia. So Gothic in Asia. And let's take a look at the topic now. Well, first of all, I have to say very clearly that I don't really have a clue about Gothic in Asia. But in very, very many Japanese anime, and also in a lot of culture from Korea, Japan, and also China, and also Vietnam, it is also about Gothic, that is about Gothic themes. And there is this one. Oh, so exactly, last time we looked at the rabbit cry. This was definitely a Gothic theme. And then I mentioned the computer game, Battle Realms Game 2001. And in Battle Realms Game 2001, we have some Gothic themes. Namely, we hear here for example. So what do we hear that's Gothic? So here we hear about a clan, and a household, or a family. So here we have 3 different or 4 different households, clan households, families. We adopt the perspective of the snake clan or the dragon clan. Then there are other clans. And each clan, and each household, is defined in some way, and competes with the other families, with the other households. And we learn that here, even in this setting, there is a lot of incompatibility with living in a family or in a clan. So apparently there are people who are defined by their race, or by their genetics, in such a way that they can live in a clan, or in a household, in a family. And most of them live in hordes. And the whole life of the people in this setting revolves around, how can you take control of the hordes? And how can you win over the hordes? So that they fight on the side of our household, so that they bow to our family. And then there is another horde, and it is very reminiscent of the Elder God, that is of the Elder God's horde. The so-called Shadow Claw always says here, I am always here. I'm always there. And that is, in effect, how one comments on the Elder God, or how the Elder God also comments on himself. And then of course there is the dragon. It says here, you are the snake, become the dragon. Yes, the dragon is something even more sublime. We also have that in the rest of the Roman ethnic group, where, so this is also a theme of the Renaissance. So the Romans in Italy in the Middle Ages are snakes. And then through the Renaissance, the Romans then become the dragon. So they then move up a level higher in their spiritual cultural existence. And yes, absolutely Gothic. So, Battle Realms Game 2001 is really an absolute Gothic game. And now let's take a look at the most important cutscenes. First of all, of course, the intro. I am Kenji of the Serpent Clan, and my father brought calamity upon the world. The hordes destroyed whatever stood in their way. Then he gathered the clan around him and flew south. So he saved the few he could save. Little did he know that the hordes were only the first of many enemies that would plague the Serpent Clan. He could not have known that his descendants, without the guiding power of the eye, would become weak and evil. Did he even have a choice in the face of the hordes? It was a long time ago, Otomo. I have been waiting for 7 years to be able to serve you, Prince, Aja. Do not call me that. Murderer. He saved all of our lives. He killed his own father. Look, it's Kenji. He doesn't speak for everyone here in the village. The son of the serpent is invited to tea in my house. Okay, then we have to look at the other intro. He says something even more interesting here. You are, Kenji the son of the serpent. See, it is, Kenji. The snake is dead. And you are their inheritance. Just say the word and we will follow you. Shinja is not a leader. He throws my men into battle against Otomo's peasant rebels. Shinja and Otomo fight each other. Okay, so now we have learned 2 important things here. So, firstly, how the hordes are represented. So the hordes are represented here, metaphorically represented, as the shadows that frighten us. So the hordes are the shadows that frighten us. And then here in this scene we are told that these people, these soldiers, do not live in a family. They don't live in the same household. And they need someone who lives in a family, who lives in a house, in a household. And so that they can then perform their service for this family, and for this clan, or for this household. And therefore, he says here that I don't feel the meaning of life when I fight here against some peasant rebels. Or somehow keep things quiet here, or whatever. But if I can now fight for a clan, or put my energy into the interests of a clan, then there is a higher meaning for me. So we have this clear world view here. So most of them live in hordes. And there are individuals who live in families. And you then try, when you are in a horde, when you are a horde person, to put yourself in the service of a person who then lives in a clan, or in a family, or in a household. So this is really very, very interesting. Okay, then next let's look at the family. So here is the family of. So here it somehow says that Kenji murdered his own father. And there is another conversation with the brother here. Let's take a look at this with the brother. Well, apparently there isn't the perfect race of people who live in families, but that's apparently also, this is how it is presented here, as a concept of life, as a life plan, as a philosophical life plan. And then it is shown here that there is competition, here in the family, as to who has the supremacy here, in the family. And that's what happens when you don't put in the effort to find yourself. And if you don't live in the Aztec theocracy. So in the Aztec theocracy there is no such competition of thought processes in the family, in the clan against each other, because in the Aztec theocracy you are clearly told what the meaning, what the order, and what the advantage is of being in a household or in a family lives. And apparently, here in this setting, you are not in the Aztec theocracy. But this is also a bit reminiscent of the ancient Roman family. There were rivalries like that too. And exactly. And there were these. But you can't really compare that either. Because in Roman antiquity, there were these rivalries between siblings, because the family or the household was not determined by race. So in antiquity there was no talk of a Gothic race. But in ancient times people spoke, so in ancient times there was this idea of adoption, for example. So you adopt capable people into the family. So that was the idea, so to speak. So the thought wasn't Christmas. So it's Christmas. The idea of Christmas is this being born into the family. And through this being born into the family of the Gothic race, the family then acquires dignity and can then also recognize the order and advantages of the Aztec theocracy. And in Roman antiquity there was no such idea of Christmas and being born into it. But there was this idea of adoption. So you then observed people like that. And then you thought, these are capable people. These are very intelligent, capable people. And we adopt them. And when we adopt these people into our family, we are stronger. So this idea of adoption can also be found today, for example, very strongly in the USA. Or this topic, immigration country. So as an immigration country you adopt capable people in order to then be stronger. That is, so to speak, this ancient Roman way of thinking. And that this of course only leads to absolute chaos, and to failure, and to ruin, which is something we can also see in the USA today. So the USA is still just a drug epidemic today. And yes, completely unattractive. So if anyone thinks of me, hey, you're capable. No, I'm not adopted. I will never allow myself to be adopted into any drug epidemic hell in the USA, under any circumstances. Gothic, so again. Gothic is to be born into it. And anti-Roman is to be adopted. And now we have, here in Battle Realms Game 2001 we actually only have this Gothic one. So now we don't find out that anyone is being adopted. But this is now about this sub-story, that for some reason there is a rivalry in the clan, in the family. But it is not explained why. But that's just how it's told now. And now this cutscene, it's about this topic of rivalry between the siblings, that is who is the most capable, who should rule. Great. It's like old times. The Snake Clan fights with united forces again. Like in the old days. One thing you have to give these miners from the Wolf Clan, they can run. They could practice long enough. We have to thank Father for that. They, Aja, are the only family that has what it takes to become the princes of this land. The Serpent Clan will rule long after Father is gone. We should have killed them all when we had the chance. My brother was right. So now let's take another look at the Dragon Clan. He says something different. You think you will rule? Of course I am his firstborn son. Besides, you spend every free minute getting drunk with commoners in cheap dive bars. War is not for you. At least not the one who leads the father. Yes, it is a burden to constantly win. There must be another option. They fight because they are afraid of the Serpent Clan. I am not my father, Otomo. You could be someone worse. Hardly likely. Did you kill him? Does it matter? Not for me. We are all in the fight together. Okay, next we'll look at the dragon, the encounter with the dragon. And now we're just looking at this middle scene. What brings the son of the serpent to this place? I need your wise advice, great dragon. Your father didn't see it that way. From the day he was born, the darkness kept him from the light. Are you otherwise son of the serpent? I am not my father. Then at least you know what you are not. What are you? I want to repair the damage done to my family. I want to end this war. What you want is not what you are. With your help I can do it. First show me what you can do without my help. Meet me at the summit and I will answer your questions. Okay, now let's look at the ending. The end of the Dragon Clan. And then it says, become a dragon. Their time is over. And yours too. Look. What are you? I am the Shadow Claw. I am the darkness. You and your kind died hundreds of years ago, Tyrant killed you. I'm always there. Forget the I. Become a dragon. Long live the dragon. The dark will always be out there, trying to scare us. But we will hide no longer. We face the future as a united country. I am, Kenji, the Lord of the Dragon Clan, and my father brought disaster to the world. It's time for me to scare the shadows. So now we have been told that if the clan becomes a dragon, that is, if there was a renaissance here, so that can now also be transferred to the Romans. So the Romans in the Middle Ages vegetated like snakes. And then in the Renaissance, when they become dragons, they can frighten the shadows and contain the hordes. Then this threat from the hordes is gone. This is, I would say, this is the true ending of Battle Realms Game 2001. And then there is a dystopian ending. So where I am of the opinion that this is definitely the end, where, that is where, Kenji also finds death with his clan. So you can't interpret it any other way. And that is when the clan decides not to become a dragon, but to remain a snake. I cannot die. Your time is over. I'm always there. You don't belong here. We are always here. I am, Kenji, the lord of the serpent clan, and my father ravaged the world. For 2 centuries my people hid, praying for the dragon's protection. But the dragon was only a myth. The meek and useless are now gone. The last of these cowards died along with the traitor, Otomo. At last we are purified. It's time for me to scare the shadows. So now we have heard the words here. Useless, cowards, and traitors. But the end here, with all the hordes now rushing towards them, can really only be interpreted as meaning that Kenji and his clan will now be overrun here. And at the end the dragon is mentioned again, that the dragon is just a myth. So, Kenji failed to become a dragon. And these dragons. And this, Shadow Claw also says, I cannot die, I am always there, or we are always there. So here they, Shadow Claw is, so to speak, a metaphorical representation of the Elder God. And the Elder God can of course hear, or they, that is the Elder God, and the Elder God, can of course set their hordes on the Snake Clan here at will. So the Snake Clan is basically like the Vampire Clan in the Legacy of Kain series 1997 to 2003. So the Snake Clan, these are the vampires. So, and, vampires, so vampires don't belong, or vampires block Gothic. Vampires block the creation of a god theocracy, an Aztec theocracy. And of course the vampires all have to be eliminated. And yes, that's it, Shadow Claw takes care of it here, and then sets the whole horde on the Serpent Clan. And in the intro we saw that the Serpent Clan was overrun and destroyed. And here in the outro we of course see again that the Serpent Clan will be overrun and destroyed. There is of course no other way to interpret the ending here. So exactly, Battle Realms Game 2001 is really Gothic. After 2 years, or after 2.5 years, or after almost 3 years, so 2 years and 3/4 of a year, so after almost 3 years, there is now once again a sign of life from the Gothic 1 Remake 2024, from this disgusting one, trolling network. And there was the event last night. And this is what I comment on. So I'm now commenting on this trailer, showcase trailer from yesterday. Now I'm talking about the Gothic 1 Remake 2024, showcase trailer that was shown yesterday. So as I said, there was complete radio silence for almost 3 years. So you haven't learned anything at all about what they actually do, what they actually want to do, what direction they want to take now, what they actually want to do with this name Gothic. And so as I said, I can repeat again. This announcement of Gothic 1 Remake 2024 is trolling. We can understand that very well today because we recently saw the Gothic Game 2003 remake and saw what was done with it. So the Gothic Game 2003 remake was also widely announced, and then now it's basically on hold. So we clearly have this trolling. But the crucial thing about the Gothic playable teaser 2019 was that the Gothic playable teaser was 100% completely off topic. That is, every target group, the Gothic in theory, that is Gothic from 2001, that is Gothic 1 from 2001. Every target group that would now theoretically like a remastered, a remake, a reboot was not satisfied, or was not, let's say satisfied is wrong. Because not satisfied, we can say for example with the Settlers series remake. With the Settlers series remake, we can then say, okay, there are people who mainly like the Settlers 2 game 1996, and then there are people who mainly like the Settlers 4 game 2001. And maybe even those who like the Settlers 7 game 2010 or the Settlers 3 game 1998 the most. And then you can say, okay, this remake didn't satisfy a single fan community. But of course the playable teaser 2019 wasn't satisfactory either, but it was 100% off topic. So the Gothic playable teaser 2019 had 100% nothing to do with Gothic. It was simple, the Gothic playable teaser 2019 was just random something, yes was random something, and was then tagged in a criminal way, with this very art history word Gothic. That was the playable teaser 2019. So now yesterday we saw where this disgusting, trolling network wants to go with Gothic 1 game 2001 from Piranha Bytes. So the first thing you can definitely say is. So I'll just read my summary. Well, as I said, I don't have anything new to say. I'll just read my summary. So an absolute failure who can't do anything announces that he will spend a lot of time deconstructing Gothic 1 game 2001 from 2001 and defining it as a complete Eurojank, that is thoroughly deleting the 50% Gothic in it, and to expand the 50% Eurojank in it. And now we saw exactly that yesterday. So we saw. I'll go into the details again. But we have seen that the developer, who showed us this showcase trailer yesterday, is an absolute failure. So we didn't see any gameplay. So now after 3 years, we haven't seen any gameplay. So you can't imagine how this game is supposed to play now, or what it's supposed to feel like. So they've basically been working on an in-game video for 3 years now. And you can also remember, for example, there is Unreal Engine 5 in-game trailer. For example, someone made. This is what the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion game 2006 would look like with Unreal Engine 5. Or this is what Skyrim game 2011 would look like in Unreal Engine 5. Or this is what The Lord of the Rings would look like if it were made with Unreal Engine 5. And these people who made these impressive videos, The Lord of the Rings, Oblivion game 2006, Skyrim game 2011, and so on, they did it in a few weeks, or in a few days. They were just random fans. And then they used Unreal Engine 5. And then built it in a few days. And what people needed a few days or a few weeks for, Alchemia Interactive, or this disgusting, trolling network, has now been working on for 3 years, almost 3 years. Yesterday we saw almost exactly the same thing that some hobby people build in a few days and weeks, but it now takes them several years. Okay, so there's really nothing to say about it other than complete failure. Well, they are definitely not professionals. Well, people in the hobby sector are definitely faster and more effective, and can achieve more and more beautiful things. And then, Eurojank. So, in my opinion, the biggest Eurojank that needs to be completely deleted in the reboot is the new camp. Well, I've already said that the new camp faction is completely Eurojank and needs to be completely deleted. And what is of course also completely Eurojank are the mines, that is the mines, especially how labyrinth-like the mines are in Gothic 1 game 2001, which is completely Eurojank. So the mines. For example, a realistic mine, which I really liked, is Days Gone game 2019. Yes, Days Gone game 2019, and that is a realistic mine. Well, that's how it is, there are. Well, I don't have a great idea about mines and stuff like that, but as far as I know, there are essentially 2 types of mines. There is the so-called opencast mining. And there is civil engineering, or whatever they call it. Well, with opencast mining, the entire landscape is actually torn up so that everything can be mined in the same day as possible. Or just like in Days Gone game 2019, that the caves are also quite small. So that whatever is in the cave is not kilometers deep, like in Minecraft game 2009. Such huge unrealistic caves. But that you actually have smaller caves, just smaller ones. And then there is civil engineering, where they actually dug an elevator kilometers deep into the earth, and then you take the elevator hundreds of meters deep underground. And then underground you have the tunnels, and so, of course, this is the old mine, the way it was designed, of course it was completely Eurojank. So completely, Eurojank. Well, there were no elevators in the mine either. Well, and then there were strange ladders and stuff in the old mine. So it was actually very, very clear, very clear in Gothic 1 Game 2001 that the topic is not mining. Gothic 1 Game 2001 is not about telling a realistic mining setting, but everything with mining and mines and stuff is just a metaphorical representation. It's simply a matter of making a metaphorical representation. And partly in the metaphorical representation of Gothic 1 Game 2001 mining and such, the game exaggerated. And that has largely degenerated into a Eurojank. So, for example, how crazy a labyrinth it all was and stuff like that. So completely unnecessary. Because as I said, the Gothic main story is not about the topic of mining, but it is about the topic of Elder God. It's about this Gothic family history. And it's not about mining or anything like that. That is, the old mine, was of course much too large in its dimensions. And this size, which was far too blatant, was of course completely Eurojank. Now, as we saw yesterday, they want to expand this Eurojank. And they really recreated the old mine more or less 1-to-1. That's my conclusion. So yesterday this disgusting, trolling network finally banged on the table, yes, banged on the table, and made it clear what they were actually doing. And yesterday they announced quite clearly that they were doing a remake. So they don't do a reboot. So as I demand a Gothic reboot, that is, I demand that the whole Eurojank be deleted. And they made it clear yesterday that they weren't doing a reboot and weren't doing a remastered either. So they won't have all the animations that I love so much in Gothic 1 and 2, they won't have all the sounds that I love so much, which also have such an incredible retro charm. All these sounds, all these animations, and all of this, the successful designs in Gothic 1 and 2, they will completely throw that away. So they won't take them up. They won't do a remaster. And they won't do a reboot either. But they will focus on recreating the Eurojank, yes, the Eurojank, which is a Gothic 1 Game 2001, in a different engine. So basically like me when I played Minecraft Game 2009. And then on one website, I discovered some really cool buildings, and then I looked at the second screen, and then. So I opened Minecraft Game 2009 twice, and then on the second screen I was in Minecraft Game 2009. In Minecraft Game 2009 in this other world, from this one that I had downloaded, somewhere on the website. And then on the main screen I recreated, what was in the other world. Of course, there is also software that allows you to simply copy 1-to-1. But I didn't want to copy some buildings 1-to-1, but rather recreate them. And that's exactly what they did now. So they are now replicating the Eurojank. And they do this for the Eurojank community. And I have already seen that there are people in the forums and also on YouTube who are also very impressed. So they now really feel it, yes, they are now really doing a remake, for us, Eurojank community. So the playable teaser 2019 was a complete mistopic, meaning it was essentially for no one. But now through this showcase trailer they have made it clear that we are now making a remake for the Eurojank community. And I can also repeat once again that I am very, very happy with it, and I am also very, very happy with it. Because as I said, my opinion, I've had it for over a year now, I've also had it on the Steam platform. So this disgusting, trolling network should go bankrupt and get the hell out of the computer games landscape. And my feelings, yes, my feelings, where I watched the showcase trailer yesterday, and where I was in the Discord server voice chat yesterday, my feelings are that I'm just completely losing the fun of computer games in general. So if I go into this Eurojank community now and look at this showcase trailer from yesterday, well, I just notice, and I have some doubts, that computer games are really my hobby. And yes, that somehow takes away the fun from really getting involved with computer games and stuff like that. So I also feel, emotionally I feel so demotivated to even bother with computer games anymore. Because when I read such opinions and things like that. So, as I said, why they definitely go bankrupt, I'll explain that in more detail in a moment. And yes, which I definitely very much welcome, and I also very much agree that yesterday we finally saw something concrete about where the journey should go, with Gothic 1 Remake 2024. So as I said, the playable teaser 2019 was a complete mistopic. Well, it just wasn't anything concrete. But now yesterday we saw something concrete, and you can really say, okay, this is also a death knell for this community and for this publisher. So this community that tolerates and praises this, Eurojank. And then also for the publisher who produces this, Eurojank. And I also thought to myself yesterday, especially because I was in the voice chat, that it took a bit of an emotional toll on me. I also think it's a bit cruel how the staff is treated. So yesterday in the voice chat, I actually had my suspicions that I already had, which were actually confirmed there. Namely, well, I noticed, yes I noticed, in the Discord server of this disgusting, trolling network that there are around 5 people there 24/7. So there are 5 people who are always present 24/7, always there. And I asked myself, why is that? And yesterday I really got the impression, or even confirmation, that these people who are really on their Discord server 24/7 are actually being paid. So basically like an unemployment benefit recipient who has to do something. So in the unemployment benefit system, in order for you to somehow get your money every month, you have to do something in some way. And THQ Nordic apparently then goes to the employment office. I don't know, I think in the Czech Republic or in Poland, they go to the employment office, then Czech Republic and Poland, and tell the employment office, hey, we need people who pretend to have an activity or an interest with us, on our Discord server, on our YouTube channel, and so on, and they get it for it, and exactly. And then they do that, and then they get money from the state for it. So that's the impression I got yesterday in the voice chat. So these people who are present 24/7 in the Discord server do not get money from THQ Nordic, but they get money from the welfare state in Poland or the Czech Republic, or even in Germany. From these countries, they get their money from the welfare state. And as a punitive activity, so that of course they don't just get their money like that, that would be an unconditional basic income. They have to do something, whether it makes sense, whether it is a meaningful activity or not. And there is this punitive activity that they are then supposed to hang out in the Discord server, and that somehow becomes an activity. That there is some kind of activity, that one superficially believes that one can recognize some kind of activity, that is, that they are pretending. They are supposed to pretend that there is an interest, such an activity. So and what I also find cruel, of course, so as I said, my impression of the showcase trailer yesterday was that the whole trailer was just something like recreating a Minecraft game 2009 world. And you just notice that this developer from Spain has no momentum at all. But this is a Spanish developer, and you can also see that on their LinkedIn, on the LinkedIn website, or on Twitter, you can also see that, namely that this developer. Yes, these are people who are at university, and they probably don't really have this feeling about the world of work and about competitiveness in the gaming industry. They just come from the university, and they just do it because the university says, because some professor goes to them and says, hey, you now have to create the Minecraft game 2009 world of Gothic 1 game 2001 in Unreal Engine 5 recreate. Whether that makes sense or not. And then they do that. Yes, that's what we saw yesterday. So we definitely didn't see any momentum yesterday. And, in the end, what we saw yesterday was, in effect, something like forced prostitution. We actually saw forced prostitution yesterday. And that made me a little sad, a little affected. And when I see forced prostitution, I actually feel very affected. And partly what I have read and so on YouTube. And what people then say about it. So like I said, I see that. Others don't see it. So there are people who have no idea at all. Now let's look at the details. So okay, what did we see yesterday? So we saw the one-to-one replica yesterday. So you clearly recognized the old mine from Gothic 1 game 2001. And yesterday you didn't see at all what the gameplay was like, that is how you could imagine the gameplay. So if it's done like that, like we saw yesterday, so the developer also said on Twitter that it's all in-game, so that's how we as players can earn it. And I can't really just say, and here I am again, I've already talked several times about the topic of, over the top. And then we really have a labyrinth hell. Yes, we have a labyrinth hell. And of course I don't agree with that at all. If I now compare the mines in Days Gone Game 2019 or Oblivion Game 2006 and Skyrim Game 2011. We also have mines and dungeons, and none of them are labyrinth in hell. These are all fun dungeons. But this dungeon is no fun. This is just a labyrinth hell. So there alone, you can say. That has no chance. So no one who played Skyrim Game 2011 and liked being in the dungeons will want to play it now. Then yesterday you saw an orc working on the masher. And someone has already said this on YouTube in his video, namely this is exactly the identical design from Arcania Game 2010. And all the NPCs are exactly the same design from Arcania Game 2010. So here, we basically saw Arcania Game 2010 2.0 yesterday. Well, especially in the area of designs, especially in the area of animations, especially in the area of sounds, it's about the former Youd employees wanting to radically redefine Gothic2, Arcania Game 2010. So this one. Just like these polls, for example, the polls, it is always important to them that they always redefine Gothic as an RPG. And just as radical as it is here for the polls, Gothic to an RPG, so Gothic is an action-adventure, not an RPG. Just as it is important to the polls to rename Gothic RPG, it is just as important here to this disgusting, trolling network to redefine Arcania Game 2010 as Arcania Game 2010. So the publisher, or the developer, is important, especially in the area of animations, especially in the area of presentation, graphics, and so on, it is important, so the developer, Arcania Game 2010 is important, so that these animations, so that these graphics, so that these designs are recycled in Arcania Game 2010, so that they are revived, so that they are re-released, so that they get marketing. So the disgusting, trolling network is important to make Arcania Game 2010 2.0. And, yesterday we also saw that it is important to the trolling network to completely throw away all the animations, all the graphics, and all the designs from Gothic 1 and 2, for the benefit of Arcania Game 2010. Then we come to the topic of graphics and lighting effects. At the end we saw the face lit with the torch. And then I thought to myself, and actually everyone did, that this looked worse than Gothic 3 Game 2006. Or really, well, it looked really bad and really bad. Also all the colors and stuff, from the torches and everything was wrong. And especially when it comes to graphics and lighting effects, you just have to make it clear again that what this trolling network showed yesterday has absolutely no chance against other European competing products. And here the emphasis is on European. So a very important game that will also be released this year, namely in about 2 months, is A Plague Tale Requiem Game 2022. And no matter whether A Plague Tale Requiem Game 2022 is good or not so good, I will 100% buy this game. Because the predecessor, A Plague Tale Innocence Game 2019, I only played it recently, a few weeks ago. I was really excited about it. I was really impressed with the previous one. And the predecessor, so here I have it in my library and have just installed it. And the predecessor. Well, first of all, I was really excited about the predecessor, and I think it's very relevant to the discussion. And it is like that, epic platform. So here, oh so exactly, I would like to say that clearly again, because I was also censored and my opinion was also deleted from Steam platform, because of this disgusting, trolling network, Embracer Group, I basically only buy my computer games from Epic platform anyway. And so, Epic Platform is now the store for me where I buy now. So I won't buy anything from Steam platform anymore, as long as Embracer Group still exists, as long as Embracer Group exists, as long as they are still there, I won't buy anything from Steam platform. For me now the only Epic Platform is the store where I now only buy my computer games. Namely the predecessor, I played it. And Epic Platform gave me the predecessor for free. Well, it was here in the store. It was here in the free games section, A Plague Tale Innocence game 2019. And I feel a little bad that I took a game that I liked so much that I got it for free and played it for free. And I would definitely like to correct that by definitely buying A Plague Tale Requiem game 2022 here at full price. And so, I will definitely buy A Plague Tale Requiem game 2022. But I have it, I haven't bought it yet, I haven't pre-ordered it yet. And here for this reason. I don't even know if I can play it yet. So actually it doesn't matter. I think, well, I have to say quite honestly, I'm always extremely doubtful about the topic. I just don't trust the game developers anymore. So I'm still traumatized by Gothic 3 game 2006. I have Gothic 3 game 2006, which I bought on the first day of release. And I'm still traumatized. That means, I will definitely buy the game immediately as soon as the requirements are announced here, and as soon as there has been a reasonable review in the press that the game is not completely rubbish, a construction site. But as soon as, let's say, as soon as someone says, okay, you can play this, I buy it straight away. So as I said, let's take a look. So as I said, A Plague Tale Requiem game 2022 is a European game, namely from French developers. And it is a European competition game, and has, so this disgusting, trolling network with their Gothic 1 Remake 2024 has no chance of competing with this European competition. Let's see. Let's see. So that's that. So as I said, this is also a fantasy medieval game. But it looks extremely good. And I mean, as you saw yesterday. Well, that looked really bad. Especially this scene where the face was illuminated. So look here, this is what it looks like when a face is illuminated in this game. And here a face is illuminated, in this European competitive game. And yesterday you saw a face lit up, in this teaser, in this trailer. So it has no chance at all. And you can simply, and of course something else, so first of all the graphics, the quality is very, very impressive. And of course what I also find extremely impressive about A Plague Tale Requiem game 2022 is the development time. Namely the predecessor, A Plague Tale Innocence game 2019 was released in 2019, exactly the same year in which the Gothic, playable teaser 2019 was released. And during these 3.5 years, or these exactly almost 3 years, yes these almost 3 years, while this trolling network was working on yesterday. The French worked on the showcase trailer, the French worked on the successor here, A Plague Tale Requiem game 2022. They've done it in 3 years now. So as I said here, Focus Home Interactive is a French independent publisher. And then if you think about it, they did it in 3 years. They did it in 3 years. And, how did they do that? How did they do that in 3 years? And there is just one reason. Namely, because they simply don't belong to this disgusting, trolling network. Yes, that is the reason. Here, they don't belong to this disgusting, trolling network and that's why they can do it in 3 years. Then the next point that I would also like to address is that even yesterday you have no idea at all, or can even have no idea, what kind of setting topic this is supposed to be, or in which century this is happening here should prescribe. Is this the Middle Ages now? Is this new times now? Is that now? In what time period and in what setting does this actually take place? So we didn't actually see the Middle Ages here yesterday. So we didn't see the Middle Ages yesterday. So what was very, very dominant in the picture were the rails for the car. And that's actually only since industrialization have we had railway tracks like this. Before they didn't even exist. And, of course, there were already such wagons, such wooden wagons or something like that, that you push in there and you have to laboriously pull them out with the horses or something like that. But railway tracks like this have only been possible since industrialization. Because you need for the train tracks, you need two parallel tracks. And in order to make such tracks, you first need the technology from industrialization. So we didn't actually see any setting topic here yesterday. And so, this trolling network is all about farting gibberish at us. And above all, I mean, LX2 game 2022 was a real flop. And this trolling network is now once again concerned with LX1 game 2017. LX1 game 2017 is also this gibberish. It's about upgrading LX2 game 2022 and repeating it again. So, Gothic 1 Remake 2024 is basically a reboot, then again of LX1 game 2017, with this gibberish, which is not really a setting topic. And at the very end we saw the spiders attacking in a pack. That is spiders that attack in packs. First of all, this is something that doesn't exist in nature. Spiders are actually lone fighters, or loners. That doesn't make any sense at all. In general, spiders in caves and such are also unsympathetic. So who wants that anyway? And then I also asked myself, who inspired this? Now is it inspired by Half-Life 2 game 2004? Is it inspired by Dead Space game 2008? And you can say again that if you take inspiration from Half-Life 2 game 2004 or Dead Space game 2008, then it will 100% be a flop because everyone will make fun of it. Everyone will somehow say how inferior it is. You take the weakest places and then convert them into Unreal Engine 4. But not in Unreal Engine 5, but in Unreal Engine 4. And you can just see how blatant trolling that was. But there was finally an announcement yesterday, an announcement that it would be a Eurojank remake and that it was for the Eurojank community. And I'm very happy with that. Because this simply made it clear to me, it was made clear to me or to us unmistakably, that this is not a product for me, that this is not a product for us. And that's exactly what I wanted, that they didn't go off topic like this, where virtually no one can say, ah, that's for me. Or this is not for me. But now yesterday they finally banged on the table and said quite clearly that this is for you and not for you. And I'm definitely very, very grateful that it was finally made clear to me yesterday that it wasn't for me. Well, I said my opinion about it in detail. Namely, that of course I'm not particularly enthusiastic. So of course I'm not thrilled because it's not for me. I would like a reboot. So a reboot means that we get a remake that has the quality of at least this medieval game, this French medieval game, A Plague Tale Requiem game 2022, which will be released in a month, or at least that is roughly the same quality as The Last of Us Part 1 game 2022, which was released a week ago. And so that we get a remake like this. And that the whole Eurojank contained in Gothic 1 and 2 will be completely deleted. I have already emphasized several times that I am not a fan of Eurojank. I don't play Eurojank games. I don't buy Eurojank games. And I don't feel like discussing Eurojank games either. And I was blocked by the Eurojank community. So they all banned and blocked me. Well, I am also deeply incompatible with the Eurojank community. And, of course, I wish that the whole Eurojank thing would be deleted. And that is my expectation. And last time they clearly hit the table and made it clear that they wanted to give a Eurojank product to the Eurojank community. Overall, now a month later, overall you can actually say quite clearly that this THQ Nordic showcase trailer a month ago was a complete flop. So there was no interest at all. I have here, the only video I found where this trailer is discussed is this YouTube channel. And I would like to briefly show how he comments on it. Namely, he comments on it very interestingly. Last time I overlooked the fact that, so I said in the last episode that the worst Eurojank in Gothic 1 game 2001 is the Nui Logger. That's absolutely true, and then I also said that the Old Mine is also a really bad Eurojank. And that's true too. But I overlooked the fact that one of the most emotional moments in the entire Gothic 1 game 2001 is in the old mine. So if you think about it, okay, what are the emotional moments that really stay with you for years? And there we have a place in the old mine. I completely forgot that. And coincidentally the English YouTube channel comments on exactly this point. And yes, I found that very surprising. So overall you can clearly say. So he made this video a month ago here on August 13th and so here, a month ago. And I think he is the only one who, as an English speaker or as an American, even watched this, THQ Nordic, showcase trailer. So all the other, YouTube channels that, for example, now watched the, Ubisoft, showcase trailer or the, Marvel and Disney, showcase trailer, where there wasn't really anything to see, anything interesting, completely ignored this, THQ Nordic, showcase trailer. So he's actually the only one who looked at it. And you can clearly say, now even a month later, that this, showcase trailer, and the trailer, was simply an absolute flop. So even in the Eurojank there was actually no response worth mentioning at all, actually no discussion worth mentioning at all. The only response I noticed is that the composer, Kai Rosenkrantz, is also part of this, Gothic 1 Remake 2024. And I have already expressed my opinion on this several times. For me, part of the Gothic experience is always, especially with Gothic 1 and 2, part of the Gothic experience is always that I go to the main menu and set the music to off. So I always play Gothic 1 and 2, or I always played Gothic 1 and 2, without music. Because the music always got on my nerves, and I always felt the music was bad and out of place with the atmosphere, just as I felt Gothic 1 and 2. And the music was always, Eurojank for me. Well, I'm not that enthusiastic about the music. So the music in Gothic 1 Game 2001 is definitely not comparable to Soul Reaver 1 Game 1999, to Stronghold Game 2001, or to Days Gone Game 2019. Or Red Dead Redemption 2 Game 2018, where I just like to listen to the music. And I definitely find it very, very fitting that if they now want to make a Eurojank product, then of course they have also won over this Eurojank composer. So you can clearly say that the showcase trailer was definitely a complete flop. It caused no response at all. He aroused no interest at all. There was no one who discussed it in any way or commented on it in any way. Okay, now let's take another look at the only thing I've found where an American has even given this showcase trailer. Push him. Oh shit. Wow, this is very vertical. Is this in the game, or is it just a cinematic? Also he says here, wow, this is very vertical. And that's exactly where there is one of the most emotional moments in the game, which is also the one that stays in your memory the most. And this is the important place in the old mine, where suicide jumping takes place. And there is here. 2 years ago a Polish YouTube channel made a video, one about the most emotional moments, about the most emotional places in Gothic 1 Game 2001. And yes, let's take a look. Well, I think he found these places really, really well. So it's a video that really excited me. Well, I'm usually not that enthusiastic about what the Poles deliver or express their opinions. But the video here is really cool. I really liked that, or I really like it. What the fuck was that? So yes, this is definitely one of the most emotional moments in Gothic 1 Game 2001. Here where you slip on this ladder here, in the old mine, and then fall into the depths here. Well, I think the Poles have really put together a very, very good summary of the most emotional moments. Now of course you can. So this point, as I said, this point is one of the most emotional and important points in the game. And now you can discuss to what extent it is important that this point is in the reboot or remake. So the hero, the nameless hero, is supposed to get a gear here, then climbs down this ladder here, but doesn't quite get there, and then he falls here on the edge, into the depths. Yes, in the depths. So and then he falls into the depths here and dies. So how important? So I would say that it is a very important place in Gothic 1 Game 2001 Original. But to what extent, as he commented here with, wow, that's really vertical. To what extent this has to be in the reboot remake. So suicide jumping is definitely a very important theme in Gothic. Yes, suicide jumping. But I think that, as incredibly sad as it is, I don't think that this scene can be preserved and saved in the remake, or in the reboot. And accordingly I have already said that I like this verticality, that the Eurojank is through and through, and that unfortunately one relies on this, that is that in the reboot one relies on this verticality, you can also say labyrinth-like verticality, that you then do without them completely. Because you simply cannot translate this scene, including this very important emotional point in the game in Gothic 1 Game 2001, to an Unreal Engine 5, state-of-the-art game. Okay, yes, that's definitely what I wanted to add. I consider this verticality to be a Eurojank. And THQ Nordic, it is important to represent this verticality, so to repeat this Eurojank and to make this Eurojank. And I don't know how you could translate this emotional passage into a state-of-the-art game. This is of course a very important emotional point that has really stuck in the memory of every Gothic player over the years. But I don't think it can be translated. Okay, but this verticality, these two people also noticed this. And it's definitely very interesting that they commented like that. No German YouTube channel has commented on this, the verticality. And here, the Americans immediately noticed this verticality, they immediately came up with this blatant verticality. Translated, this blatant, Eurojank. And they commented on that, this verticality, this, Eurojank. And then there really wasn't a single response and not a single interest. So I really have to say, in my opinion, Gothic 1 Remake 2024 has completely died with this THQ Nordic showcase trailer. There are, as I perceive it now, there is simply no response. This showcase trailer completely flopped, had no interest at all, and caused no discussion at all. Game magazines like GameStar magazine have published articles where they just, like I do all the time, where they say in general terms, hey, that's what a reboot should do. This should do a remake. That is what we expect. So basically from scratch they published their thoughts here again. But they recognized this showcase trailer as a complete flop, and then really explained again from scratch, okay, this and that should roughly be the reboot remake. Yes, it's crazy that the showcase trailer was such a blatant flop here. And I really have to say that it really demotivated me to deal with Gothic art. And then I played GTA 4 Game 2009 again, and Half-Life 2 Game 2004, and so on, to check for myself again whether computer games are really my hobby anymore. I like games like Half-Life 2 Game 2004, GTA 4 Game 2009, whether I can still enjoy them at all, whether I still feel something like that, whether computer games are still my hobby at all, or whether just Gothic. So my interest in Gothic was now so demotivated. And, so apparently. So I definitely had a lot of fun with GTA 4 Game 2009 and Half-Life 2 Game 2004. Well, it's just the THQ Nordic showcase trailer, which really managed to demotivate people, so that they don't really want to deal with this Gothic style anymore, or themselves not wanting to think about it anymore. Or like in 2017. I feel like when it comes to Gothic, so now through this showcase trailer, I feel like I'm in 2015 again. Where I watched the Handoff Blood Influencer Let's Play. Handoff Blood Influencer played the entire Gothic series as a Let's Play in 2014, 2015, and I watched it and had a lot of fun. And or 2017, where I played through Gothic 1 and 2 in its entirety as a Let's Play or as a live stream, backseat gaming with a person from YouTube. Well, I was the backseat gamer, and he basically did everything in Gothic 1 and 2, just as I directed him. And that was 2017. And in 2015, 2017, I had a lot of fun with Gothic 1 and 2. But for me it was 100% something like that in my thoughts, that there is no remake coming, remastered is coming, that there is no developer, no publisher, no perspective, that one could somehow think about it now about a remake or reboot. Or that's exactly how I feel about the showcase trailer now. So now I actually feel like I'm in 2015 or 2017 again when it comes to Gothic 1 and 2. So completely without hope. That there was something interesting from Gothic 1 and 2 that could now draw me personally into the volume, or that could interest me now, that something could be done there or something could appear. Yes, that's how I feel. Okay, that's my addition now. So I wanted to tell you again how I feel so demotivated. This is this really strong emotional place here, in the old mine, with this verticality that you can't, I don't think, translate into a photorealistic, Unreal Engine 5 game. So first we come to, I would like to tell you, the USA. So there is currently a very, very interesting topic, namely there was this, Disney film, The Little Mermaid film 1989, and based on. And they have now made a trailer saying that they now want to make a live-action film of The Little Mermaid, and that this protagonist, the Little Mermaid in the live-action film, should be an African-American woman. And why does Disney do this? So, Disney does this and not, as is now hysterically claimed here, for some dubious reasons, or for some arbitrariness, but it is the case that certain culture, or certain imagery, or certain fantasy imagery, so certain low fantasy that we know, yes that we know, comes from Africa. There is certain culture, there is certain low fantasy that comes from Africa. So the most important and best known low fantasy that comes from Africa is the zombie theme. So maybe not the topic. So in the Gothic metaphor there is the theme of the undead. And that's why in Legend of Ascen Game 2018, and also in Gothic 1 and 2 we don't have these zombie hordes. But rather we have these skeletons. Shadow Lord. Skeleton Lord. Skeleton Undead. So in Gothic the imagery is more undead, vampire. That is skeletons and vampires. This is more like the imagery in Gothic. So zombie, like we have with, for example, this zombie virus, in like, Days Gone Game 2019 or in, The Last of Us Part 1 Game 2022, with this mushroom, the cordyceps mushroom, zombie mushroom. So zombie is a metaphor that comes from Africa. And the word zombie also comes from the African word from northern Angola, zumbe. And then in Creole, it became, sonbai. And then to zombie. So the zombie theme is an African low fantasy metaphor. A low fantasy from Africa. And for example the theme of mermaids, which is also a low fantasy metaphor from Africa. Here from all over Africa. There you know the mermaid. And I think that women who have somehow been genitally mutilated are also called mermaids in a perverse way in Africa. I think I heard a documentary at some point that said the word mermaid was also used on the topic of genital mutilation. And I can personally say, on the subject of The Little Mermaid, that I love this animated series, or this, Disney film, The Little Mermaid film 1989. I personally never liked her. I have this cartoon series that was on TV and I watched it. And I never understood the animated series, The Little Mermaid. I never understood what kind of imagery this was, what kind of low fantasy it was, about mermaids, where this imagery even came from. It is said that this is Danish or Scandinavian low fantasy imagery. So that somehow there are mermaids in Germanic Nordic mythology or something like that. I don't know. Well, I personally don't know much about Germanic mythology. So I'm not interested at all. But I also don't think mermaids appear in Germanic mythology. Well, I never understood this mermaid topic, where does it even come from? And what is definitely certain is that mermaids are low fantasy imagery from Africa. And that's why, Disney decided, because it's a low fantasy from Africa, that they would of course cast the mermaid with an African American or a black woman in the live-action film, so that it doesn't make sense, like in the cartoon, in the animated series, that the mermaid is a white European woman. And seen that way, because I never understood this animated series, The Little Mermaid, anyway, and because I also understand why, so I understand that the mermaid is an African low fantasy metaphor. That's why I definitely think it's very, very fitting, so I definitely think it's very, very fitting that the mermaid is played by Africans, that is blacks. Now there has been a trailer, the last few days, for this live-action film, which I believe won't be released until the middle of next year. And he triggered a massive dislike wave, And here, 1.5 million, over 1.5 million people clicked dislike on the video. Although the video itself is really good, really worth watching, really well done. And let's take a look at this video here, because one country, China, has already reacted. Yes, China has already reacted to this trailer. Oh, it doesn't matter. It is a fictional story. The race doesn't matter. Some of those people getting really upset, that people are taking liberties with this trailer. Like we had here from China. Where China obviously tried to do with their, quote-unquote, fix this trailer. So China, yes, China fixed the trailer straight away. Namely, the original in the trailer above. And below China has fixed, because. And there was also an American who said when the film, well, he commented on it a bit like with computer games, like with Piranha Bytes computer games, or like with Bethesda computer games, wherever it is said, yes, they release. And then, the community. Yes, the community that patches, yes, they patch it properly. And only through the community patch can you actually get this product. So you basically acquire the original through a pirated copy. Then this pirated copy is patched. And only then can you actually consume it sensibly. This is the case with Piranha Bytes products. For example, Gothic2 game 2002, I have already explained that in detail. So in any case, Gothic2 game 2002 doesn't work for me on Steam platform. So, Gothic2 game 2002 really only works stably for me if I purchase the product through a pirated copy. And then only through the community patch, can I actually play Gothic2 game 2002 properly. And China reacts the same way here, or certain people in the USA. They say to themselves, I can't give myself the original film with this black actress, but only when the community with artificial intelligence has patched or fixed the film, then I can only watch it. And exactly, and someone said that in a few hours or a few days he would patch the entire film in this way, that is fix it. And then you can take a proper look at it. And then he wrote, don't judge me on the subject of race. Because does not condemn me on the subject of race, but rather praises or admires what technology, that is what artificial intelligence, can already do today. The trolling network that makes Gothic 1 Remake 2024, Gothic 1 Remake 2024 has published pictures and information. And I can also briefly express my thoughts. So as I said, this is just a repetition of what I've already said numerous times. On the subject of armaments. And there are my main thoughts on armor, that it's gibberish here. Namely the armor, as some have already commented, it is more reminiscent of LX1 game 2017. So that means you don't really know who actually built this armor. So you've farted some absolute gibberish setting here, with these armors. And unlike, for example, a Plague Tale Requiem game 2022, you don't actually get a clear atmosphere here. You don't get a clear setting theme told here. And they farted the armor really, Eurojank again. And to the rooms that were shown. Well, the first thing I noticed about the rooms is that you can see much less than in the original. So in the original, Gothic 1 game 2001 you really saw everything well. One has clearly recognized everything, what it is all supposed to be. Now everything is kind of weirdly vague and dark and stuff. Now you can hardly see anything. That's the first thing. And of course the Gothic 1 Remake 2024 is exactly the opposite of, for example, Days Gone game 2019 or the Last of Us Part 1 game 2022 remake. So with The Last of Us Part 1 game 2022 it was the case that in the original game from 2013, which has similar graphics to Red Dead Redemption 1 game 2018, that I and et al. Or you in the original game of The Last of Us game 2013, you didn't recognize many things very well. You couldn't see many things very well. And in the remake you can see everything really well. Just like in Days Gone Game 2019. So in Days Gone Game 2019 I see everything great. Yes, I can see everything. I can see everything that somehow is supposed to be something. And that was the difference from the original, The Last of Us Game 2013 to now the remake, The Last of Us Part 1 Game 2022, or Days Gone Game 2019, or The Last of Us Part 2 Game 2020. That you can now see everything clearly again and clearly recognize what it is all supposed to be. And, of course, the trolling network does exactly the opposite. You do exactly the opposite. That means in the original, Gothic 1 Game 2001 you really recognized everything well. When I'm in any room, I see, ah, that's a table, ah, that's a barrel. Ah, that's a chair. Ah, that's this and that. But now in the remake they want it all to be kind of mushy. You can hardly see anything anymore. And that's the first thing I noticed. So we can say again, clearly, Eurojank. Or what was also commented on here, for example, the arena. So they attach great importance to expanding the arena. And so, they now want to make the arena a real Colosseum, a real Roman Colosseum. And of course that is completely Eurojank again. I perceived the original, Gothic 1 Game 2001 as Germany, yes as Germany. Are there Colosseum arenas in Germany? No. But what is there in Germany? Yes, for example in the USA too. What do we have very often in Germany? We often have in Germany, or even in the USA, where people of German descent live. Since we tried this out, of buildings. You try something out. Almost like child's play. So it's kind of like a children's room. Well, or as I often do. As is often the case with me. It was always like that for me as a child. I had visitors and the visitors wanted to try everything out. Or even today, with small children in the family. The visitor comes here, tries everything out once, and then just leaves everything behind. So everything that you've tried out is simply left lying there instead of sort of tidying it up, or tearing it down, or somehow organizing the bulky waste here, or whatever. So you try it out once and then leave it alone. When I was a child. Or when I watch the small children when they visit, in an Austrian or Bavarian remnant Roman ethnic group. So in the family. Then it's always the case that if the children move something, it always has to be tidied up again at the end. Clean, yes, made clean, and tidied up clean. And in our Prussian German family, everything is simply left behind. So nobody bothers to clean it all up again, and so on. And it must also be emphasized that both families live in paid-off property. Of course, when I'm in a hotel room now, or when I'm living in a rented apartment, I don't mess everything up, and mess up, and litter everything. Because if you live on rent, then in theory you can complete everything in a day or two, so that you can actually move out immediately in a day or two. So, for example, when I was studying, I lived in a rented apartment, and then from one day to the next I thought to myself, no, I don't feel like it anymore. Here. I'm studying in a different place where I'm somehow happier, where I have more motivation, and then from one day to the next I just left, I just moved out. And precisely, and I always kept everything neat and tidy and clean, and precisely. And in my house it's rather, let's say, messy because I'm at home. I'm not here in a hotel room or something like that where the cleaning lady comes every day and makes the bed and takes care of the dust and stuff like that. And the peculiarity, that is the peculiarity of a Prussian reality of life, of a Prussian family, is that you tend to leave things alone once you have tried them out. And then they just stand there but are totally ignored. And that is also a very important detail, where I just think, or where I really feel, that is Germany. So the Gothic 1 Game 2001 setting, which is Germany. And not Austria or Bavaria, for example. So Bavaria and Austria must of course be done differently. So if you then depict Mert Hannah in Gothic 3 Reboot, then you have to show that this topic is more important to people, sustainability. Yes, in Bavaria and Austria people tend to think like that when I see a house build it, then my great-great-great-great-grandchildren will inherit it. So I'm not just going to build a house just for myself, like it's funny. And what we also have in Bavaria and Austria is that when a house is sold, it is completely demolished. So in Bavaria and Austria it is generally not possible to move into a house. So it's basically like this, it is basically the case in Bavaria and Austria that if you buy a house, that is if I buy a house in Bavaria or Austria, then it is the norm that this house is then completely demolished and I then buy a sustainable, for my family, and for my family needs, build a sustainable new house. And in the other German areas, it's more like moving into a predecessor's house. So someone built a house. I buy this house, move into this house, and then renovate this house according to my needs, which is not protected as a monument. So monuments are protected and so on, that also exists in Bavaria, that's another topic. We are now basically only talking about houses that are not listed. So in other regions people always report that they have bought a house and then renovate it according to their ideas. And that doesn't exist in Bavaria. In Bavaria the previous house is completely demolished. And then I'll build a whole new house. And that is a very important difference, especially between the Mainental, which is supposed to represent the rest of Germany. So Berlin, North Rhine-Westphalia and Dortmund and so on. So the Main Valley is intended to represent the reality of life or this understanding, as is often the case in the USA, that people don't think about this sustainability, that they don't think about this issue of bulky waste and departure. But that once you've tried something once, for example, you tried out the arena once. And then it is simply left there and ignored. This is the peculiarity of the Mainental region. And the peculiarity of the region, or the locality of the Murthana region, is then like in Bavaria and Austria. It's more of this sustainability thing. So so the arena in particular is a very, very important detail, where I think, okay, that's the rest of Germany. This is Ruhrpott. And the way they did the arena now in the remake, that is in the thumbnail, that is, Eurojank. So this is really Gothic content. Yes, really Gothic content has now been completely deleted in the remake, and clearly redefined as Eurojank. So they now want the arena to be a Roman one, so they now want to make the Main Valley a Roman province, with a Roman Colosseum-like arena. And yes, that is now a very clear point where we can say, okay, here Gothic content has been deleted and redefined as Eurojank. And then someone brought up a very interesting topic. Namely, he meant that the red, yes the red of the remake armor, that it was too dull for him, that the red, yes, he doesn't like the red, it's too dull, it has to be much brighter, much stronger. And that is a really, very, very interesting criticism. You can say again that the Gothic community is a troll, they are trolls. And they are disgusting critters. So they want it to be more like The Witcher 3 game 2015, from this game, which I don't like at all. In The Witcher 3 game 2015, for example, all the colors are really bright and really bright. I have to say very clearly that they actually did a really good job of removing that bright red. They even deleted Eurojank and did it the way I want it, the way I expect it. Because it's true, it's Eurojank in the original Gothic 1 game 2001, that this bright red and this bright blue make you think that there are two different opposing factions in the Mainental here, so the blues against the reds. And that was Eurojank. So there is the Eurojank community. So he basically criticizes it in such a way that, or he basically expects that the remake should be like this, like it's an Anglo-French mining colony. And then there are the English, with their bright red, and the French, with their bright blue. And no, we are here in Germany. And in Germany there are no opposing factions. The only factions that exist and can be clearly distinguished are the elder gods. So these are the German core population, with the normal self-discovery effort. And then separately from that, the cattle, yes the German cattle. These are the only separate camps, or separate factions, that one could theoretically imagine in Germany. But here these opposing factions, blue and red. This is Eurojank. And I have to say, the remake even deleted Eurojank. And so far they have not shown any armor from the new camp. So they haven't shown the mercenary armor yet, and the bandit armor. And that actually makes me think quite hopefully that they might then delete the entire new camp because it was completely Eurojank. And so that is now a point that I praise about the Gothic 1 Remake 2024. Because it was exactly this bright red and blue that was Eurojank, and they have now deleted it. I praise that.